During Thanksgiving dinner, my mom stood up and said loudly, "I'm giving everything I own to your brother Daniel, because you don't deserve anything, Alex." Daniel looked so pleased, thinking he'd won. We were all sitting around the table, eating turkey, mashed potatoes, and stuffing. The fireplace was crackling and glasses were clinking. It was supposed to be a nice Thanksgiving, but then my mom decided to drop her big announcement. She stared at me and then at Daniel, who was already smirking like he knew something good was coming. She said, "When I pass away, everything I own, my house, my money, all of it, will go to Daniel. Because you, Alex, don't deserve anything." The room went completely silent. Everyone was shocked. Daniel leaned back in his chair, looking proud. My mom had always treated him better than me. He was the golden child who could do no wrong, while I was always the disappointment. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice shaking. She nodded with a cold smile. "You never listen to me. You never appreciate me like Daniel does." "Because I don't worship the ground you walk on," I snapped. She glared at me. "Because you're selfish and ungrateful." Some of my relatives looked uncomfortable, but my grandmother, sitting at the far end of the table, just watched everything without saying a word. Daniel finally spoke up, grinning. "Sounds fair to me. I've been here for Mom. You just ran off and did your own thing." I clenched my fists. Yeah, I moved out because staying meant being treated like garbage every day. I worked hard to build my own life and career without any help. Meanwhile, Daniel still lived at home at 38 years old, unemployed, never paying a bill. And now he's getting everything. But then my grandmother cleared her throat. Everyone looked at her. She was 94 years old but still sharp as ever. A man holding a briefcase stepped forward. It was a lawyer. My mom's smile vanished. "What do you mean?" she asked, sounding nervous. My grandmother placed her hand on the table. "You don't own this house, Margaret. You never did." I stared at my grandmother in confusion. "What do you mean she doesn't own the house?" Grandma looked at the lawyer, who pulled out a thick stack of papers. "This house and everything else you're trying to give away was never yours to give." My mother's face went pale. Daniel's smirk disappeared. "A what?" Daniel snapped. The lawyer ignored him and explained, "An irrevocable trust. That means the terms of ownership can't be changed. Margaret, you've never legally owned this house. Your mother does, and she decides who gets it." The room was completely silent. Daniel looked stunned, and my mom was frozen in shock. My grandmother smiled, just a little, like she had been waiting for this moment, and I have already made my decision. The lawyer cleared his throat and looked at me. "According to the trust, the rightful heir of this house and everything that comes with it is Alex." I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, but because it was so unbelievable I thought I had misheard. "What?" my mother snapped. Daniel jumped up from his chair. "No, that can't be true. This is my house." The lawyer stayed calm. "Actually, no. This house was put into an unchangeable trust by your grandfather. It was never legally given to your mother. Your grandmother has always been in control, and the rules of the trust decide who gets it." Daniel was furious. "This is some sort of joke. Mom's been living here for years." "Yes, I've raised my children here," my mother added, sounding more confident. But Grandma just stared at her with a cold look. "Margaret, you never paid for this house. Your father and I did. We let you live here, hoping you'd be responsible. But you know what we discovered?" She leaned forward, her hands resting on the table. "You took out loans against this house." My stomach dropped. The whole room went silent. My mother's face went pale. "That's not true," my mother snapped. "I don't know what you're talking about." The lawyer continued, "Over the last 15 years, you've taken out several loans using this house as if it was yours. The total amount of those loans is over $250,000. "No," my mother yelled, slamming her hands on the table. "That's a lie." The lawyer kept reading calmly. "You couldn't pay back many of those loans, so there are liens on the house. Just last year, you tried to get another $50,000, but it was denied because the house doesn't legally belong to you." My mother looked like she was in shock. She turned to Daniel. "Daniel, say something." But Daniel looked terrified, like he was just now understanding the truth. "Mom, is this real?" She didn't answer. My grandmother sighed, shaking her head. "You lied to your son. You let him think everything would be his, while you were using this house to get as much money as you could. It's shameful. I was still trying to make sense of it all when Daniel suddenly lost it. This isn't fair, he yelled. I stayed here. I took care of you. And now you're saying I get nothing. The lawyer looked at him. Not exactly. Daniel blinked, confused. What do you mean? The lawyer slid a paper across the table. Your grandmother is giving you a choice. Daniel grabbed the paper and read it, his face turning red with anger. This is a joke. I glanced at the paper, and when I saw what it said, I couldn't believe it. What does it say? I asked. Grandma folded her hands calmly. I'm offering Daniel a one-time payment of $50,000 if he agrees to move out of the house immediately and never contact me again. The room went silent. Daniel looked crushed. You're kicking me out? He asked, his voice trembling. Yes, Grandma replied without hesitation. My mother gasped. You can't do that. I can, Grandma said calmly. You thought you could cut Alex out and hand everything to Daniel. But this house was never yours to give. You've been living here because I allowed it, and now that kindness is over. Daniel turned to my mother, almost begging. Mom, do something. Don't let her do this. But my mother looked completely shocked. She finally understood she had lost, and everything she planned just fell apart. Daniel turned to the lawyer. I'm not leaving. You can't force me out. The lawyer nodded, like he expected that answer. That's your choice. But if you refuse the money, we will start the legal process to evict you. Daniel's eyes went wide. Eviction? You can't kick me out. The lawyer calmly explained, according to the law, you're considered a tenant. You haven't paid anything to live here for over 10 years. Now that the house is officially going to a new owner, they have the right to make you leave. Daniel looked at me, desperate. You wouldn't do that, right, Alex? We're brothers. I stared at him. After years of him getting everything and watching him smile as our mom treated me like I didn't matter, I finally had the power, and I was ready to use it. Daniel sat there breathing heavily, holding the contract so tight his knuckles turned white. My mother looked panicked, her eyes bouncing between me, the lawyer, and Grandma. She had never expected this. She thought this dinner would be her moment to humiliate me and make Daniel the winner, but she was never in control. Daniel pushed his chair back so hard it shook the table. This is justice, Grandma said calmly. Daniel turned to me, his face red and angry. This isn't fair, Alex. You don't even want this house. I've been here my whole life. I leaned back, feeling a new kind of strength. You weren't worried about fairness when Mom was trying to cut me out. This is different, Daniel yelled. No, Daniel, it's not. After years of watching him get everything handed to him, it was finally my turn. The lawyer slid another paper across the table. You have 30 days to leave, Daniel. If you don't, we'll start the eviction process. Daniel grabbed the paper and crushed it in his fist. I'm not going anywhere. Silence. Then my grandmother chuckled. Oh, Daniel, you always thought you could throw a tantrum and get your way. She took a calm sip of tea. But you forget. I know everything. Daniel froze. Then Grandma said the words that changed everything. I know of the second mortgage. Daniel went pale. My mother gasped loudly. You don't know anything, Daniel stammered. Oh, but I do, Grandma said. She placed her teacup down and looked directly at Daniel. You took out a second mortgage on this house, didn't you? That's a lie, my mother shouted. Is it? The lawyer slid another document across the table. Daniel tried to grab it, but I got it first. When I read it, my stomach dropped. Oh my God, I whispered, looking at both of them. You forged Mom's signature. Daniel's face was sweaty and nervous. Mom was supposed to own everything anyway. It didn't matter. I looked at my mother, expecting her to be furious, but she just sat there, shaking like she might faint, because she knew. She knew that once the house belonged to me, Daniel's crime became my problem. The debt would fall on me. And then I understood. Wait, I said, looking at my grandmother. You knew about this before tonight, didn't you? She smiled slightly. Of course I did. That's why I made sure the house went to you. What? Why would you do that? I asked. Because I knew what they would do to you if I didn't, Grandma said. She looked at Daniel and my mother. They would have sold this house, taken all the money, and left you with nothing. I couldn't let that happen. My heart was pounding. This wasn't just about an inheritance anymore. It was a battle. I'll fight this, Daniel growled. I'll fight all of this. The lawyer pulled out one last paper. You've already lost. Daniel grabbed the paper and read it with shaking hands. Then he screamed, no, 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 and threw it on the table, his face red with anger. I picked up the paper and read it. It was brilliant. My grandmother had outsmarted them completely. The paper was a court order. Daniel, my grandmother said firmly, you don't just owe money on this house. You committed fraud. Daniel shook his head, panicking. No, you can't do this. Oh, but I can, Grandma replied. The bank knows what you did. The police do too. If you don't take the money and leave, they will press charges. Daniel's face went pale as he realized what that meant. This wasn't just about losing the house. It was about losing his freedom. You have 48 hours to decide, the lawyer said. Take the money and walk away or refuse, and we go to the police. My mother burst into tears. Please, Mom, don't do this. He's your grandson. But Grandma's expression didn't change. No, he stopped being my grandson when he stole from his own family. Daniel looked completely defeated. And me? I just sat back, knowing this was over. Grandma had planned everything, and she was unstoppable. The room went completely silent. Daniel stared at the contract, his hands shaking. My mother was crying into her napkin, looking completely defeated. My grandmother sat there calmly, like she expected this all along. So what's your decision, Daniel? She asked. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes darted around, desperate to find a way out. Suddenly, I saw the panic in his eyes turn into anger. No, he yelled, pushing his chair back. No, I'm not leaving. You can't do this to me. Before anyone could react, he grabbed the papers from the table and ripped them in half. Everyone gasped. You think you can just get rid of me? I'll destroy this house before I let you take it. Then he lost it. He lunged at me, grabbing my shirt and yanking me forward so hard my chair almost fell over. You don't deserve this. I'm the real owner, he screamed, his spit hitting my face, his grip painfully tight. Then slap. Daniel stumbled backward, holding his face. My grandmother had slapped him so hard her voice echoed through the room. Enough, she shouted. Daniel stared at her, shocked, but my grandmother stayed calm and turned to the lawyer. Call the police. Daniel's eyes went wide. What? No, wait. I'll take the money. I'll leave. It's too late, my grandmother said coldly. We could hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. Daniel turned to my mother. Mom, help me. Do something. But my mother just shook her head, tears still streaming down her face. She knew Daniel had done this to himself. 10 minutes later, the police arrived and dragged Daniel out of the house in handcuffs. He screamed, begged, and cried, but no one helped him. This isn't fair. You're ruining my life, he shouted. I stood on the porch, watching as the police pushed him into the car. No, Daniel, I said calmly. You ruined it yourself. The car door slammed shut, and the police drove away. Daniel was gone. I took a deep breath, feeling free for the first time in my life. Daniel was charged with fraud. It turned out he had forged signatures before, and the bank had been building a case against him for months. My grandmother just sped up the process, and Daniel ended up in jail. My mother tried to fight back. She screamed, cried, and begged my grandmother to change her mind. But Grandma was done. She gave my mother one last chance. You can stay in this house for 6 more months. After that, you leave, or Alex will have you evicted. My mother left in 4 months. She moved into a small apartment across town. She tried to rebuild her relationship with me. But I didn't want that. I wasn't cruel. I helped her when she needed it. But I never forgot how she treated me, and I never let her get close enough to hurt me again. In the end, I renovated the house. I fixed everything they had neglected and made it beautiful again. When it was all done, I threw a big Thanksgiving dinner and invited everyone in the family, everyone except my mother and Daniel. They didn't deserve a seat at the table. As I looked around at my home, filled with people who truly cared about me, I knew I had finally won.
My name is Emma, and if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be the black sheep of an upper-class family, I would have laughed. But here I am, married to the love of my life, Daniel, yet constantly battling the disapproval of my mother-in-law, Victoria. When Daniel and I first met, it was like stepping into a fairy tale. He was charming, kind, and utterly oblivious to the privileges his upper-class upbringing had afforded him. I, on the other hand, came from a middle-class family where every penny counted. Our backgrounds were worlds apart, but our love felt like the perfect bridge. Daniel's family was another story. They were welcoming at first, in a distant, polite kind of way. But Victoria, his mother, always had a measuring look in her eyes. She was the matriarch, a woman who carried her family's legacy like a crown and expected everyone to live up to her standards. I tried, God knows I tried. I attended every event, smiled through countless dinners, and even laughed at jokes I didn't understand. But it was never enough for Victoria. She saw me as an outsider, someone not fit to carry the family name. And the more I tried to prove myself, the wider the gap between us grew. The first real clash came with our wedding. Victoria wanted a spectacle, something that would make the social pages and impress their circle. She talked about 7-figure budgets, as if discussing the weather. But Daniel and I, we wanted something different. We wanted a celebration of love, not wealth. We organized a modest wedding, focusing on what mattered to us: good food, close friends, and family. It was a beautiful day, the kind you dream about, but Victoria couldn't hide her disdain. She complained about every detail, from the decorations to the menu, and even managed to convince some relatives that our wedding was a disappointment. Looking back, I realized that was the moment I lost any chance of winning her over. Not that I didn't try. I continued to play the part of the dutiful daughter-in-law, but Victoria's coldness turned into something more. It became a silent war, one where every gesture and word was scrutinized and judged. I remember once overhearing her talking to a friend, describing our wedding as charmingly simplistic, but lacking in any real taste. Her words stung, and I realized then that it wasn't just about class or money. It was about control. Victoria wanted to dictate every aspect of our lives, and my refusal to bend to her will was seen as a direct challenge. Daniel saw it too. He stood by me, always, which only worsened his relationship with his mother. It was as if she couldn't comprehend why her son would choose his wife over her archaic ideals of family and status. But I was tired of the constant judgment, the veiled insults, and the never-ending battle to prove myself worthy of a family that seemed determined to see me as an outsider. I started to withdraw, to build walls around myself for protection. And as the holiday season approached, I made a decision that would set the stage for an even greater conflict. One that would test not just my marriage, but my very sense of self. The stage was set for a showdown, and I, Emma, was at the heart of it. Little did I know, the coming events would reveal secrets and challenges that would change everything I thought I knew about family, love, and belonging. The battle lines were drawn unintentionally with our wedding, a day that was supposed to symbolize unity, but instead sowed deep-seated division. Daniel and I had envisioned a day filled with love and laughter, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for us. We wanted it to be a celebration of us as a couple, a reflection of our journey together. Victoria, however, had other plans. She envisioned a grand affair, something that would be talked about in their social circles for years to come. Her idea of a wedding was less about the union of two hearts and more about showcasing wealth and status. When we told her we were planning a modest event, focusing on the quality of food and intimacy of the gathering, her disappointment was palpable. "You only get married once, Emma," she said in a tone that dripped with condescension. "Don't you want it to be memorable?" It was memorable, but not in the way Victoria had hoped. Our wedding was a joyous occasion, filled with laughter, diverse cuisines that reflected our love for food, and heartfelt speeches. Even George, Daniel's father, who was known for his stoicism, let loose and enjoyed himself. But Victoria, clad in an expensive designer dress that overshadowed even the most elaborate decorations, wore a tight smile that never reached her eyes. The fallout from our wedding was immediate. Victoria's disappointment turned into a silent yet relentless campaign against me. She would make offhand comments about how things could have been better if only we had listened to her. I heard whispers, little snippets of conversations where she lamented to family members and friends about the missed opportunity our wedding was. Daniel tried to mediate, but there was a growing chasm between him and his mother. Each time he defended our choices, it only seemed to fuel Victoria's disapproval. He was torn, caught between the love for his mother and his loyalty to me. But the real conflict was not about the wedding. It was about control. Victoria had always been the one calling the shots in the family, and our wedding was the first time someone had dared to defy her. It was more than just a disagreement over a celebration. It was a challenge to the power dynamics within the family. I found myself questioning my place in this family. I had married into a world where appearances mattered more than authenticity, where tradition overshadowed individuality, and at the center of it all was Victoria, a matriarch who viewed my presence as a threat to the order she had meticulously maintained. As the months passed, the strain began to take its toll. Daniel and I were happy together, but the constant undercurrent of tension with Victoria cast a shadow over our marriage. It wasn't just about being accepted, it was about maintaining my identity in the face of overwhelming pressure to conform. The holiday season was approaching, a time for family and togetherness. But in my heart, I knew that being around Victoria would only deepen the divide. It was time to make a choice, one that would either bridge the gap or widen it irreparably. Little did I know that this decision would lead to a confrontation that would change everything. The holiday season, meant to be a time of joy and family, became a battleground in my ongoing war with Victoria. After the wedding fiasco, I realized that any hope of a peaceful relationship with her was wishful thinking. It was then that I decided to set firm boundaries, a decision that Daniel supported, albeit with a heavy heart. Victoria's influence in the family was undeniable. She was used to getting her way, and anyone who dared to defy her faced her wrath. However, I was determined not to let her control our lives. So, when the annual family vacation planning began, I made a stand. "I think it would be best for everyone if I didn't join this year," I told Daniel, who looked at me with a mixture of understanding and sadness. He knew how toxic the atmosphere had become, but the thought of being apart during the holidays was painful for him. Victoria's reaction to my decision was as expected. She took it as a personal affront, a deliberate act of defiance. Her demeanor towards me, already frosty, turned openly hostile. She accused me of driving a wedge in the family, of turning her son against her. The backlash was immediate and intense. Victoria's influence meant that other family members started to view me with suspicion and distrust. Whispered conversations would cease when I entered a room, and invitations to family events became less frequent. Despite the challenges, Daniel stood by me, his loyalty unwavering. This only seemed to infuriate Victoria more, and she began to question my intentions, suggesting that I was manipulating her son for my gain. Her accusations were baseless, but they hurt. I had entered this family with open arms, only to be met with closed doors. Our relationship reached a breaking point during a particularly tense family dinner. Victoria, in a moment of unbridled anger, openly criticized our marriage. Her words were sharp, each one a dagger aimed at my heart. "You've changed him," she hissed across the table. "My son was never like this before you came along. You've taken him away from us." Daniel, usually the peacemaker, finally snapped. "I'm still your son, but I'm also Emma's husband. She's my family too, and you need to respect that." The room fell silent. It was the first time Daniel had openly confronted his mother. The tension was palpable, a tangible entity that filled the space between us. That night, as Daniel and I lay in bed, a mix of emotions swirling within us, we realized that our struggle was more than just a series of disagreements. It was a fight for our identity as a couple, a battle against an oppressive tradition that sought to dictate our lives. As Christmas approached, the idea of spending it under Victoria's scrutinizing gaze was unbearable. I suggested to Daniel that he should go on the family vacation without me. I would stay back, find solace in the quiet of our home, and later join my own family for their post-Christmas celebration. Reluctantly, Daniel agreed, but his decision only fueled Victoria's narrative that I was the villain in this story. Her call the next day was a clear indication of her feelings. "You're tearing this family apart," she accused, her voice dripping with venom. "You've taken my son, and now you won't even let him spend Christmas with his own family." I listened, a sense of weariness washing over me. Her words, once sharp and hurtful, now seemed hollow. I was tired of the constant battle, tired of trying to prove myself to someone who had already made up her mind about me. As I hung up the phone, I realized that this was more than just a family feud. It was a test of my resilience, a challenge to my place in a world that seemed determined to reject me. But as the year drew to a close, I knew that the biggest battle was yet to come. The decision to spend Christmas apart from Daniel's family was one of the hardest I had ever made. As the festive season enveloped the city in its warm embrace, I found myself enveloped in a cold, unyielding solitude. Daniel, torn between his loyalty to me and his family obligations, was a picture of inner conflict. In the end, he chose to stay with me, a decision that only served to deepen Victoria's resentment. Christmas Eve arrived with a sense of emptiness. Daniel tried to keep a brave face, but I could see the sadness in his eyes. He missed his family, traditions they shared, and the laughter that echoed through their grand home. I felt a pang of guilt for being the cause of his sorrow, but I also knew that joining Victoria and the rest of the family would only lead to more pain. The day passed in a blur of artificial cheerfulness. We watched movies, cooked together, and tried to make the best of our situation. But the shadow of the unspoken conflict with Victoria loomed over us, an ever-present specter of discord. On Christmas morning, the phone rang, shattering the fragile peace we had managed to build. It was Victoria, her voice icy and sharp. "You've really done it this time, Emma," she accused. "You've kept my son from his family on Christmas. Are you happy now?" Her words were like a slap in the face, but I had grown accustomed to her hostility. "Daniel made his own decision," I replied calmly, trying to keep my voice steady. The conversation that followed was a bitter exchange of accusations and grievances. Victoria blamed me for every rift in the family, for every moment of unhappiness Daniel had ever experienced. I listened, feeling a mix of anger and despair. After the call, Daniel and I sat in silence, the joy of the day overshadowed by the heavy weight of family conflict. It was clear that something had to change, but I was at a loss as to how to bridge the chasm that had formed between us and Victoria. The days that followed were a reflection of our inner turmoil. Daniel was distant, lost in his thoughts, and I was consumed by a sense of helplessness. The family vacation that I had opted out of became a symbol of my isolation, a stark reminder of the price of setting boundaries. As New Year's Eve approached, I made a decision. I would reach out to Victoria, try to mend fences, and start the new year on a new footing. It was a resolution born out of desperation, a last-ditch effort to salvage what was left of our family ties. But fate had other plans. A call came late on New Year's Eve, a call that would change everything. Victoria had been rushed to the hospital, a heart attack. In that moment, all our differences, all our conflicts, seemed trivial and inconsequential. Daniel and I rushed to the hospital, the urgency of the situation bringing a new perspective. As I sat in the sterile waiting room, watching Daniel pace back and forth, I realized how deeply entwined our lives had become with his family. For better or worse, Victoria's health scare was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. It forced us to reevaluate our priorities, to question the value of holding on to grudges and resentments. As Victoria recovered, there was a palpable shift in our dynamics. The brush with mortality had softened her, made her more reflective, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of hope, a possibility of reconciliation. But the journey to healing was far from over. The years of conflict had left deep scars, and it would take more than a health scare to erase them. As I looked ahead to the coming year, I knew that the road to forgiveness and understanding would be long and arduous. But for the sake of our family, for the sake of the love that Daniel and I shared, it was a road I was willing to travel. Victoria's health scare marked a turning point in our strained relationship. As she lay in the hospital, frail and vulnerable, I saw a different side of her, a side that was human, scared, and far from the controlling matriarch I had always known. It was a stark reminder that beneath the layers of pride and prejudice, we were all fragile beings, bound by the same fears and hopes. In the days following her hospitalization, there was an unspoken truce between us. The usual sharp remarks and cold stares were replaced by a cautious civility. Victoria, recovering slowly, seemed to have lost some of her combative spirit. Daniel, relieved by his mother's improving health, hoped this would be a new beginning for us all. But old wounds don't heal easily. The years of resentment and misunderstanding had built walls that were not easy to tear down. I found myself wrestling with mixed emotions, relief that Victoria was recovering, but also apprehension about what this meant for our future interactions. One afternoon, while visiting Victoria in the hospital, I found myself alone with her in the room. The silence was awkward, filled with unspoken words and unresolved tensions. Finally, Victoria spoke, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "Emma, I know we've had our differences," she began hesitantly. "I haven't always been fair to you. This situation has made me realize that life is too short for such bitterness." Her admission took me by surprise. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from her. I sat there, unsure of how to respond. Part of me wanted to embrace this opportunity for peace, to let go of the past and move forward. But another part, the part that had been hurt and belittled, clamored for retribution, for recognition of the pain she had caused. I looked at Victoria, her usual armor of confidence and control gone, replaced by a certain vulnerability. It was a moment of decision. Should I seek revenge for all the hurt or extend the olive branch of reconciliation? My mind raced with possibilities. I could use this opportunity to assert my place in the family, to turn the tables on Victoria and make her feel the isolation and judgment she had inflicted on me. But as I watched her, a frail figure amidst the sterile hospital sheets, I realized that such a path would only perpetuate the cycle of conflict and pain. I appreciate your words, Victoria," I finally said, my voice steady but gentle. "I hope we can put the past behind us and start anew." A flicker of relief passed through Victoria's eyes. "I would like that," she replied quietly. The days that followed were a tentative dance of reconciliation. We started to build bridges, slowly and carefully. There were moments of awkwardness, of old habits threatening to resurface, but there was also a newfound respect and understanding. Daniel was cautiously optimistic, happy to see the two most important women in his life trying to mend their relationship. And for me, it was a journey of letting go, of choosing peace over revenge, understanding over conflict. But the true test of our fragile truce came during the next family gathering. It was an opportunity to solidify our newfound understanding or to fall back into the old patterns of hostility and resentment. As the day approached, I felt a mix of hope and trepidation, wondering if the peace we had started to build was strong enough to withstand the pressures of family dynamics. What happened that day would either cement our journey towards healing or shatter the delicate peace we had managed to forge. The family gathering loomed like a final exam for which I had been preparing, yet still felt unready. The event, a grandiose annual soirée hosted by Victoria and George, was typically a showcase of status and superficial pleasantries. This year, however, it carried a new significance. It would be the first public appearance of our reconciled family unit. As Daniel and I arrived, I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. The opulent setting, a grand ballroom adorned with crystal chandeliers and silk drapes, seemed to echo with the memories of past confrontations. Guests mingled, glasses clinked, and the air was filled with the light hum of orchestrated socializing. Victoria, resplendent in a tasteful evening gown, greeted us at the entrance. Her smile, once a well-practiced facade, now held a hint of genuine warmth. The initial exchange was cautious but polite, a significant improvement from our previous encounters. The evening progressed with an unexpected ease. Conversations flowed more freely, and I found myself engaging with family members who had previously kept their distance. The atmosphere, although still charged with the undercurrents of a complex history, was noticeably less tense. Daniel, watching his family interact with a newfound harmony, seemed visibly relieved. His gaze met mine across the room, and in his eyes I saw gratitude and love. It was a silent acknowledgement of the journey we had undertaken, the challenges we had faced and overcome together. However, the true test came later in the evening. Victoria, in a move that surprised everyone, raised her glass for a toast. The room fell silent, all eyes turning towards her. "Tonight, I want to acknowledge someone who has shown great strength and grace," she began, her voice steady. "Emma, my daughter-in-law, has been a part of this family for years, and I have not always been as welcoming as I should have been." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Victoria continued, her eyes meeting mine. Emma, you have brought much-needed change to this family. You have shown us that love and understanding are more important than tradition and appearances. I am grateful for the lessons you have taught me, and I look forward to the future we will build together as a family. The room erupted in applause, a sound that resonated with the beating of my heart. It was a moment of redemption, of wounds beginning to heal. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me, a mix of relief, happiness, and a newfound respect for Victoria. The rest of the evening was a celebration not just of the family's social status, but of its growth and unity. Laughter filled the air, replacing the stifling formality that had once dominated these events. As the night drew to a close, Daniel and I walked hand in hand, the stars shining brightly above us. The journey had been long and fraught with obstacles, but we had emerged stronger, both as individuals and as a couple. Our story was not just one of conflict and struggle, but of understanding and forgiveness. It was a testament to the power of love and resilience, a reminder that sometimes new beginnings can emerge from the bitter ends. The days following the family gathering were filled with a sense of quiet contentment, a stark contrast to the tumultuous years that had preceded. Daniel and I, once caught in the eye of a relentless storm, now found ourselves in a peaceful harbor. The change was not just in our relationship with Victoria, but within ourselves. As I reflected on the journey, I realized how much I had grown. The struggles with Victoria, though painful, had taught me the value of patience, resilience, and most importantly, the strength of my own convictions. I had learned to navigate the delicate balance between standing up for myself and extending grace to others. Daniel and I, through the fires of conflict, had forged a deeper bond. Our marriage, once tested by external pressures, was now a testament to our mutual respect and understanding. He had been my unwavering support, my partner in every sense, and together we had turned adversity into a stronger, more profound love. Victoria, too, had transformed. The formidable matriarch, once unyielding in her ways, had shown a capacity for change that I never thought possible. Her journey, from a figure of authority to one of understanding, was a powerful reminder that people could evolve, given time and empathy. Our family dynamic had shifted. The once rigid hierarchy dissolved into a more egalitarian structure, where each member's voice was heard and respected. The change was not overnight, nor was it without its setbacks, but it was a start, a foundation upon which we could build a more harmonious future. As the seasons changed, so did our lives. Daniel and I, once isolated in our struggles, now found ourselves part of a family that, while still imperfect, was learning to embrace its flaws and grow together. We hosted dinners, attended family events, and engaged in conversations that previously would have been unthinkable. The scars of the past remained, a reminder of the challenges we had faced, but they also served as a testament to our resilience. We had navigated the complexities of family dynamics, cultural differences, and personal battles to create a space where love and understanding could flourish. As I looked forward to the road ahead, I saw not a path free of obstacles, but one that we could navigate together as a family. The journey of reconciliation and growth would continue, with its highs and lows, but I was confident in our ability to face whatever came our way. Our story, woven through the threads of family drama and personal struggles, was a tapestry of life's complexities and beauties. It was a narrative of change, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love. In the end, what mattered was not the conflicts we had faced, but the lessons we had learned and the bonds we had strengthened. Our story was a reminder that even in the most challenging circumstances, there is always a possibility for new beginnings, for healing, and for hope.
The text message from my bank hit me like a punch to the gut. Alert! Account ending in 47 new one balance below $100. That was impossible. I'd saved over $20,000 in that account for my daughter's medical expenses. My name is Jillian, and in that moment, standing in the emergency room where I work as a nurse, I knew exactly what had happened. My mother had struck again. Jill, you okay? Talon touched my shoulder, his concerned face swimming into view. You look like you've seen a ghost. She did it again, I whispered, my hands shaking as I pulled up my banking app. My mother, the words caught in my throat as I stared at the balance. 47.21. Take 5, Talon said, already reaching for my patient charts. I've got your patients covered. I barely made it to the break room before the tears started falling. 5 years of careful saving, gone. Every extra shift, every holiday I'd worked, every penny I'd scraped together for Raylan's future, vanished. My phone rang. Mother, of course. Where is it? I demanded, not bothering with hello. Sweetie, I can explain, she slurred. I had a system. It was foolproof this time. Where's my daughter's money? The cards were hot, baby. I just needed a little more to win it all back. You stole $20,000 from your granddaughter. My voice cracked. A passing colleague glanced through the break room window, and I turned away. Don't be so dramatic, Mother said. I'll win it back. I'm due for a big one. I can feel it. Where are you? The Golden Lotus. But listen, if you could just spot me another 1,000, I hung up and grabbed my keys. Thank God Raylan was at her after-school program. I couldn't face her right now, couldn't tell her that the money for her future medical needs was gone. The Golden Lotus Casino loomed ahead, its gaudy neon signs a beacon for desperate souls like my mother. I found her at a slot machine, cigarette dangling from her lips, surrounded by empty glasses. Mother? She didn't look up. Just one more spin, honey. This one's gonna hit big. I reached over and yanked the power cord from the wall. The machine went dark. Hey, she protested, spinning to face me. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes glassy. I was about to win. You need to come home, now. Don't take that tone with me, young lady. I'm still your mother. Are you? I grabbed her purse, dumping its contents onto the floor. My bank card fell out, along with several cash advance receipts. A mother doesn't steal from her granddaughter's medical fund. Security approached us. Is there a problem here? No problem, I said, snatching up my card. She's leaving. Like hell I am. Mother tried to plug the machine back in. I've got a system. Ma'am, the security guard said, I think it's time to go. Outside, Mother stumbled against me. You're overreacting. I would have paid it back. Like you paid back the $5,000 last year, or the $3,000 before that. I helped her into my car, fury and despair warring in my chest. This was different. This was Raylan's money. That child is perfectly healthy. She has a congenital heart condition. I slammed my hand against the steering wheel. You know this. You were there when the doctor told us she might need surgery someday. Mother waved dismissively. Insurance will cover it. No, it won't. Not all of it. I started the car, my hands trembling. This is the last time, Mother. I mean it. She snorted. You always say that. Because you're living in my house. Because I trusted you. Because... I stopped, a memory suddenly surfacing. Dad's letter, the one he'd left before he died. Something about the house deed. Whatever you're thinking, stop it, Mother said, reading my expression. I'm your mother. You need me. I pulled into our driveway, where Mrs. Peterson from next door was walking Raylan home from the bus stop. My beautiful 5-year-old broke into a run when she saw me. Mommy, Grandma, look what I made in art class today. I caught her in my arms, breathing in her sweet scent, while Mother stumbled past us into the house. Baby, I whispered, holding Raylan tight, how would you like to have a sleepover at Aunt Freya's house tonight? Really? Can I bring Mr. Whiskers? Of course you can. I texted Talon's sister quickly, then helped Raylan pack an overnight bag. Once she was safely with Freya, I had work to do. Dad's letter was in my desk drawer, untouched since his death 2 years ago. I'd been too angry to read it then, too hurt by his abandonment. But now I remembered something he'd said about protecting us from Mother's unfortunate habits. As I pulled out the envelope, Mother's voice drifted down from upstairs, already on the phone with another casino. I unfolded the letter with trembling fingers, and there it was. The key to saving our future. Dad hadn't abandoned us after all. He'd left us a way out. Dad's handwriting was shaky, but his words were clear as day. If your mother ever endangers your future or Raylan's, there's a reconciliation clause in the house deed. She can be removed without her consent under specific conditions. I read the letter 3 times, my hands trembling. All this time, I'd thought Dad had abandoned us, but he'd been protecting us even after death. My phone buzzed. Talon, how are you holding up? I found something, I said. Dad left us a way out. A way out of what? Everything. I heard Mother upstairs, still talking to the casino. Can you meet me for coffee? I need someone to tell me I'm not crazy. 20 minutes later, I slid into a booth at the 24-hour diner across from the hospital. Talon pushed a steaming cup toward me. Okay, spill it. I spread Dad's letter on the table. He knew she'd never stop gambling, so he built in a safety net when he put the house in both our names. Talon leaned forward, reading. Jesus, Jill, this is serious stuff. She stole my daughter's future, I said, my voice cracking. $20,000 gone in what? A few hours? Have you thought this through? Taking her name off the deed means? It means she'll have nowhere to go. I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, seeking warmth. I know. The waitress stopped by, and we fell silent until she left. Remember last year? I asked. When Raylan had that heart scare? Talon nodded. He'd been there in the ER that night. The doctors said she might need surgery before she's 10. Major surgery, Talon. And now the money's gone. My voice broke. My baby's money is gone. There are other ways. No. I pulled out my phone, showing him the banking app. Look at the withdrawal times. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. While I was working nights trusting her to watch Raylan, she was stealing from us. Jill? She used my card, Talon. She must have watched me enter the PIN. She planned this. The diner door chimed, and a group of nurses from our shift walked in. They waved, but seemed to sense we needed privacy. What does your gut tell you? Talon asked quietly. That I'm turning into her. I pressed my palms against my eyes. Calculating, manipulative. Stop. Talon reached across the table, pulling my hands down. You're protecting your daughter. That's what mothers do. But am I any better? Planning to make her homeless? You know what the difference is? He tapped Dad's letter. You're doing this to protect someone. She did what she did to feed an addiction. My phone buzzed again. Mother. Where are you? I need to borrow your car. I texted back. No, don't be difficult. I need to run to the bank. There's nothing left to take. The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared several times before. You're just like your father. Never understood the big picture. I turned the phone face down, fighting tears. Hey, Talon said softly. What's the next step? I pulled out a business card I'd been carrying for months. Dad's old lawyer, Edgar, he's the one who drew up the deed. Then that's where you start. I already called. He can see me tomorrow morning. I traced the letter's edge with my finger. Is it wrong that part of me hopes she fights this? That she finally shows some kind of, I don't know, remorse? It's not wrong. Talon squeezed my hand. It's human. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Freya. Raylan wants to say goodnight. Video call, okay? Moments later, my daughter's face filled the screen. Mommy, Aunt Freya let me help make cookies. That's wonderful, baby. I forced a smile. Are you being good? Uh-huh. Can we do more sleepovers? This is fun. Behind her, Freya gave me a thumbs up. My daughter was safe, loved, and completely unaware of the storm brewing at home. We'll see, sweetheart. Now get some sleep, okay? Okay, love you, infinity. Love you, infinity +1. After ending the call, I looked at Talon. I have to do this, don't I? He nodded slowly. You know what they say on airplanes? Put your own oxygen mask on first? Yeah? This is your oxygen mask, Jill. You can't help anyone if you're drowning. I folded Dad's letter carefully, tucking it away. The appointment with Edgar is at 9. Want me to come with? No. I stood up, gathering my resolve. This is something I need to do alone. As I drove home, Mother's lights were still on. I could hear her through the open window, making promises to someone on the phone, probably another casino's credit department. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of removing her name from the deed. Tomorrow, I'd take the first step towards saving my daughter's future. But tonight, I had one more letter to read. The rest of Dad's goodbye, the part I'd been too angry to face before. Edgar's office smelled like old leather and coffee. He hadn't changed since I'd last seen him at Dad's funeral. Same bow tie, same wire-rimmed glasses, same compassionate eyes. Your father was a wise man, he said, studying the letter. He knew this day might come. Can it be done? I asked, perched on the edge of my seat. Can we remove her name? Edgar pulled out a thick folder. Your father built in very specific conditions: financial misconduct, endangerment of a minor's well-being, misuse of shared assets. He looked up. Do you have documentation of the theft? I placed a manila envelope on his desk. Bank statements, withdrawal receipts, cash advance slips. She took everything while I was working nights. He examined each document carefully. And the money was specifically designated for your daughter's medical care? Yes. I have letters from Raylan's cardiologist about her condition and potential future procedures. Good. He made notes on a legal pad. The fact that she used your card without permission makes this criminal theft, not just a family dispute. My stomach churned. Will she go to jail? Only if you press charges. Edgar leaned back. The deed modification can proceed without criminal charges, but you should know, she won't go quietly. What do you mean? She'll be served notice. She'll have 30 days to contest the modification. If she does, there will be a hearing. I twisted my hands in my lap. Will I have to testify? Yes, and you'll need to be prepared for what she might say. People facing consequences often lash out. My phone vibrated. Mother again. I ignored it. How long will this take? Best case, 2 months. Worst case if she fights it, 6 months or more. I can't wait that long. I leaned forward. She's still in the house, still asking for money. Last night My phone buzzed again. This time it was Raylan's school. I'm sorry, I said. I have to take this. Mrs. Fox, this is Nurse Sandra. Raylan had a bit of a fall during recess. My heart stopped. Is she okay? Just a scraped knee, but given her condition, we thought you'd want to know. Her heart rate was slightly elevated. I'll be right there. I hung up and looked at Edgar. My daughter, go, he said, already gathering the papers. I'll start the paperwork today. But Jillian? He caught my eye. Once this starts, there's no going back. Are you sure? I thought of the empty bank account, of Raylan's future surgeries, of Mother upstairs making promises to casinos while my daughter slept. I'm sure. The school nurse's office was quiet when I arrived. Raylan sat on the exam table, swinging her legs, a Disney princess Band-Aid on her knee. Mommy, she reached for me. I fell, but I was brave. I hugged her tight, checking her pulse out of habit, strong and steady. What happened, baby? I was chasing Marcus and tripped on the playground, but look. She pointed to her knee. Nurse Sandra gave me Ariel. The nurse appeared with an incident report. Her vitals are normal now. We monitored her for 15 minutes just to be safe. I signed the form, trying to keep my hand steady. This was why we needed that money. One fall, one scraped knee, and my world stopped spinning until I knew her heart was okay. "Can I go back to class?" Raylan asked. "We're making solar systems." After confirming she was truly fine, I watched her skip back to class, her backpack bouncing. My phone buzzed yet again. "Where have you been?" Mother demanded. "I need you to come home. The casino manager is being completely unreasonable about my credit line." "I'm at Raylan's school. She fell." "Oh, she's fine. That child bounces like rubber. Now about the casino." "No." The word came out sharp, final. "No more casinos. No more money. No more chances." "Don't take that tone with me. I raised you better than—" "Did you? Did you raise me, Mother? Or did I raise myself while you chased jackpots?" Silence then. "You sound just like your father before he abandoned us." "He didn't abandon us." I thought of the letter, of Edgar's office, of all the pieces falling into place. He protected us, and now I'm protecting my daughter. I ended the call and texted Talon. "It's done. Lawyer started the paperwork." His reply came quickly. "You okay?" "No, but I will be." Walking back to my car, I saw Raylan through her classroom window. She was holding up a paper-mache planet, laughing with her friends, her scraped knee already forgotten. She was everything good and pure in my world, everything worth fighting for. My phone rang again. Edgar. "The papers are ready," he said. "The server will deliver them tomorrow morning. Are you prepared for her reaction?" I watched my daughter, safe in her classroom, and felt steel enter my spine. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." The server came at 8 a.m. sharp. I watched from my car across the street, Raylan safely dropped at school, as Mother answered the door in her bathrobe. Even from here, I could see her face change as she read the papers. My phone started ringing immediately. I let it go to voicemail. "You've got some nerve," her voice crackled through the speaker. "I'm your mother. You can't do this to me." 3 more calls, 3 more voicemails. I drove to work, trying to focus on the day ahead. Talon caught me in the locker room. "You look like you haven't slept." "She was served this morning." I pulled on my scrubs. "It's officially started." "How'd she take it?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text. "Meeting at the community center tonight. Could use your medical expertise. Freya." "Your sister needs me at some meeting," I told Talon. "Something about medical expertise?" "Oh, right, the Safe House project." He smiled. "You should go. Might help take your mind off things." The ER was busy enough to keep me distracted until my shift ended. Mother had called 17 more times. I deleted the voicemails without listening. The community center was lit up when I arrived. Freya met me at the door, clipboard in hand. "Thanks for coming," she said, leading me inside. "We're trying to set up a medical assistance program for the Safe House residents." Safe House? For women escaping abuse, addiction, bad situations. She gestured to a room full of people. "We've got the building, but we need protocols for medical emergencies." I stopped short. "Is this about addiction recovery?" "Partly." Freya touched my arm. "Talon told me about your mom, about the money. I thought maybe something good could come from it." "What do you mean?" "The money's gone, right? But what if we could help prevent other families from going through what you did?" The meeting started before I could respond. I sat listening to stories of women trapped by addiction, by abuse, by circumstances they couldn't control. Each story felt like a mirror, reflecting pieces of my own life. My phone buzzed. Mother again. This time I answered. "How dare you?" she hissed. "After everything I've done for you?" "I'm in a meeting," I whispered, stepping outside. "We can talk later." "No, we'll talk now. I raised you, fed you, clothed you, and stole from my daughter. My voice was steady. You stole her future. It wasn't stealing. I was gonna pay it back. With what money, Mother? The money you don't have? The credit cards that are maxed out? Silence then. I need help. My heart stuttered. In 34 years, I'd never heard those words from her. What kind of help? Money for a lawyer, to fight this ridiculous petition. The hope that had flared died instantly. No. Then I'll tell everyone what an ungrateful daughter you are, how you're throwing your own mother out on the street. Inside, Freya was discussing recovery programs. Through the window, I could see women nodding, sharing their stories of hope and healing. You know what, Mother? Tell everyone. Tell them how you stole your granddaughter's medical fund. Tell them how you gambled away her future. Tell them everything. I ended the call and went back inside. Freya was introducing a woman who'd recovered from gambling addiction, who now counseled others. The hardest part, the woman was saying, is admitting you need help. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom. After the meeting, Freya caught up with me in the parking lot. What did you think? I looked back at the building. I think I want to help, not just with medical protocols, with everything. Really? Her face lit up. We could use the expertise. And, she hesitated, maybe it would help you too. Healing goes both ways. My phone buzzed with a text from Mother. You'll regret this. I'm calling everyone we know. Freya read it over my shoulder. You okay? Actually, yes. I put the phone away. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. The safe house needs funding, Freya said carefully. If you wanted, when you get the money back. There is no getting it back. I smiled sadly. But maybe we can stop it from happening to someone else's daughter. Driving home, I passed the Golden Lotus Casino. Mother's favorite haunt was lit up like a carnival, promising riches and delivering ruin. I thought about the women at the meeting, about second chances and rock bottoms. My phone rang again. This time it was Raylan's school. Mrs. Fox, just wanted to let you know Raylan did wonderfully in her presentation today. She taught the class all about the heart. I pulled over, overwhelmed by sudden tears. She said she wants to be a doctor, the teacher continued, to fix hearts like hers. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was doing the right thing. Not just for Raylan, but maybe, in some twisted way, for Mother too. Sometimes love means making the hardest choices. Sometimes it means being the bad guy to do the right thing. Mother's campaign of revenge started with Aunt Sarah's call. How could you do this to your own mother? She demanded. She's devastated. I was in the hospital break room, 3 hours into a 12-hour shift. Did she tell you why? She said you're trying to make her homeless over a simple misunderstanding about money. Simple misunderstanding? I gripped my phone tighter. Ask her about the $20,000 she stole from Raylan's medical fund. Silence. Then, what? By the time I finished explaining, Aunt Sarah's tone had changed completely. I'll call you back, she said quietly. The next call came from Uncle Pete, then Cousin Mary, then my mother's best friend, Dorothy. Each time, the same pattern: accusation, explanation, shocked silence. Your mother's been busy, Talon said, handing me a coffee. She's calling everyone we know. I showed him my phone, but it's backfiring. People are finally seeing her for who she is. Speaking of seeing things, he nodded toward the ER entrance. Mother stood there, swaying slightly, makeup smeared. Security was already moving toward her. I've got this, I told them, approaching her. Mother, you can't be here. My own daughter, she announced loudly, throwing me out like garbage. Patients and staff turned to stare. I took her arm, leading her toward the exit. You're drunk. Go home. Home? She laughed bitterly. The home you're stealing from me? Lower your voice. This is a hospital. Where's my granddaughter? I want to see Raylan. Not happening. I pushed through the doors into the parking lot. Not while you're like this. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. You think you're better than me? You think you can't end up just like me? I'm nothing like you. No? She smiled cruelly. Then why do you check your pulse when you're stressed? Why do you count ceiling tiles when you're anxious? Just like I taught you, just like my mother taught me. I pulled away, my heart racing. She was right. I was doing it now, pressing fingers to my wrist, counting the beats. Go home, mother. Sleep it off. Or what? You'll call the police? Report your own mother? If I have to. She staggered back, tears cutting through her mascara. I gave you everything. You gave me anxiety, trust issues, and an empty bank account. The words came out before I could stop them. But you know what? You also gave me the strength to stop you. Back inside, Talon was waiting. You okay? No. I showed him my trembling hands. She's right. I am like her. All these little habits, these anxious tics. Stop, he grabbed my shoulders. Having her habits doesn't make you her. You're breaking the cycle, Jill. That's what matters. My phone buzzed. Freya. Community center meeting in an hour. We're discussing funding allocation. Coming? I looked at Talon. Cover for me? Go. Do something good with this mess. The community center was packed. Freya stood at the front, outlining plans for the Safe House's medical clinic. We need about $20,000 for basic equipment, she was saying as I slipped in. $20,000, the exact amount Mother had stolen. I raised my hand. What if we had that money? Hypothetically? Freya's eyes widened. Are you saying, if we get it back, through legal means or restitution, it should go here, help other families break the cycle? The room burst into discussion. A woman in the back stood up. I lost my house to my husband's gambling, she said. My kids lost their college funds. A place like this, it could have saved us years of pain. Others shared similar stories. Each one felt like a piece of my own story, reflected back at me. My phone buzzed. Edgar, your mother's lawyer contacted me. She wants to negotiate. I stepped out to call him back. What kind of negotiation? She's offering to repay the money in exchange for staying on the deed. Where would she get the money? She claims she can borrow it from family. I thought of all those phone calls today, all those relatives finally seeing the truth. No, I said, no more enabling, no more chances. Are you sure? It would be faster than court. I'm sure. I watched through the window as Freya drew up plans for the clinic. The money's not the point anymore. This has to end. Back inside, I raised my hand again. I want to volunteer, not just with medical stuff, with everything. Freya beamed. Really? Really? I took a deep breath. Because my mother was wrong about one thing. We're not doomed to repeat our parents' mistakes. We can choose differently. My phone buzzed one last time. Mother. You'll regret this. You're just like me. You'll see. I typed back. No, Mother. I'm choosing to be better. And maybe, someday, you will too. Then I turned off my phone and joined the meeting, ready to turn our family's pain into someone else's healing.
My name is Alexandra, and I'm a 32-year-old woman trapped in an electric nightmare of my own making. The trouble started, ironically, with something as innocent as childhood friendship. Bella and I grew up together, as close as sisters. Our bond formed in the sandbox and sealed over scraped knees and shared secrets. She was the calm to my storm, the poised figure amidst my chaotic energy. But as we grew, I watched Bella transform, like a butterfly, but into someone I barely recognized. I remember the day it changed. We were 12, sitting in my cluttered bedroom, surrounded by video games and comic books, my world. Bella, twirling a lock of her hair, said, "Alex, do you ever think about being popular? Like being one of those girls everyone admires?" I had laughed it off, but Bella hadn't. As the years rolled on, she morphed into the epitome of teenage allure. Her smile could stop boys mid-sentence, and her laugh became a siren song in the hallways of our high school. She was worshipped, and with that worship, she changed. The sweet girl I knew was replaced by someone who saw friendship as a ladder to climb, each rung a step further away from me. But even as we drifted apart, she never turned her venom on me. She'd saunter into my world, dropping her queenly facade, and ask for my advice on boys, as if we were still those little girls sharing secrets in a treehouse. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. Life took us in different directions after high school. I ventured off to New York for college, embracing the chaos of the city, while Bella stayed back, reigning over our small town like a provincial queen. It wasn't until years later, after I had returned home and started dating Mark, that Bella and I truly collided again. Mark was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, kind, attentive, and with a smile that could light up the darkest of my days. I introduced him to my family with a heart full of hope, not knowing that this would be the beginning of my undoing. It was a chance encounter. Bella, as if summoned by some wicked twist of fate, appeared at my doorstep just as Mark and I were leaving. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over him. "Is this the famous Mark?" she asked, a hint of something sinister in her tone. "Yeah, this is him," I replied, a knot forming in my stomach. Bella's gaze lingered on Mark a moment too long before she flashed a predatory smile. "Well, aren't you going to introduce me properly, Alex?" The unease that had started as a mere flutter in my heart grew into a storm as I watched Bella weave her web around Mark. She was a master at this game, her words honeyed and her laughs perfectly timed. Mark, bless him, was oblivious to the danger. He was just being polite, but to Bella, politeness was an invitation. A few days later, I arranged for the three of us to meet at a cafe, thinking it would put my mind at ease. How wrong I was. As Mark excused himself to the restroom, Bella leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Alex, I have to tell you something. I think I'm falling for Mark." I stared at her, the words not quite making sense. "What are you talking about, Bella?" Her eyes, dark and serious, met mine. "I can't help it. He's just so perfect." It felt like a slap in the face, a betrayal wrapped in velvet. I wanted to scream, to call her out, but the fear of losing Mark silenced me. I forced a smile, a mask to hide the crumbling world inside me. "Stop joking, Bella. That's not funny." She laughed, a sound that's once comfort, now a harbinger of my impending heartache. "Relax, Alex. I'm not going to steal your boyfriend. It's just a little crush." But as I sat there, watching her watch him, I knew it was more than a crush. Bella didn't do things by halves. She was a storm, and she was about to break everything in her path. The cafe was bustling with the usual morning crowd, a cacophony of clinking cups and casual chatter. Mark, Bella, and I found a quiet corner. I could feel the weight of Bella's gaze, heavy and unsettling, as she studied Mark with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "So, Mark, Alex tells me you're a doctor." "That must be fascinating," Bella began, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. Mark, ever the humble, nodded. "It has its moments, but it's just a job at the end of the day." Bella's laugh was a melody designed to ensnare. "Just a job? Saving lives sounds more like a superhero's work to me." I watched, a silent spectator in a play I never wanted to attend. Mark was oblivious to the undercurrents, responding with polite but disinterested answers. But Bella, she was relentless. Each word, each gesture was a calculated move in her game of seduction. As the conversation drifted, I felt an increasing sense of isolation. It was as if I were a ghost at my own table, unseen and unheard. When Mark excused himself, Bella turned to me, her mask slipping slightly. "Alex, aren't you worried?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "Worried about what?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Bella leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. "That someone might take him away from you. Someone like me." The raw honesty in her words struck me. This was no joke or playful banter. This was a declaration of war. "Bella, what has gotten into you?" "He's my boyfriend," I said, my voice tinged with disbelief and hurt. She shrugged, a predator confident in her prowess. "I can't help who I fall for, Alex. And let's be honest, you and Mark, I give it 6 months." I wanted to lash out, to scream at her for her betrayal, but the words died in my throat. Instead, I sat there paralyzed by the realization that the childhood friend I once knew was long gone. Mark returned, oblivious to the tension. As we left the cafe, Bella's parting words were a knife in my back. "Let's do this again soon. I'd love to get to know Mark better." The ride home was a silent one. Mark, unaware of the storm brewing, chatted about mundane things. But my mind was elsewhere, trapped in a whirlpool of betrayal and fear. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. Bella had thrown down the gauntlet, and I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. She wanted a war, she would get one. But unlike her, I would play the long game. I would wait, watch, and when the time was right, I would strike. Bella may have been the queen of manipulation, but I had a few tricks up my sleeve too. In the quiet darkness of my room, a plan began to take shape. A plan that would bring Bella's world crashing down around her. It was a dangerous path, one that could destroy everything I held dear. But I was past the point of no return. Bella had made this personal, and I was going to make sure she regretted it. The days that followed were a blur of unease and suspicion. Mark, caught up in his work, remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Bella, on the other hand, seemed to be everywhere, a constant, looming presence in my life. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when my fears were confirmed. Walking down the familiar streets of our town, I saw them, Bella and Mark, strolling together, lost in conversation. They looked comfortable, too comfortable, with each other. My heart pounded against my chest as I approached them, my mind racing. "Mark, Bella," I called out, my voice shaking. They turned, surprise etched on their faces. Mark's expression changed to one of concern as he saw my distress. "Alexandra, what's wrong?" he asked, stepping towards me. "Why are you two together?" The words tumbled out, a mix of accusation and disbelief. Bella's face was a mask of feigned innocence. "Oh, we just bumped into each other. Decided to catch up, you know?" Her casual dismissal of the situation fueled my anger. "Catch up, really, Bella? Or is this one of your little games?" Mark looked between us, confusion turning to realization. "Alex, is this what you think? There's nothing going on." Bella's eyes met mine, a challenge in their depths. "Why, Alexandra? Do you not trust your boyfriend? Or is it me you don't trust?" The confrontation was drawing an audience, curious onlookers pausing to witness the drama. Mark reached out, trying to calm the situation, but I shrugged him off. "Bella, I've known you my whole life. You're like a sister to me. How could you do this?" My voice broke, the weight of years of friendship crumbling under the weight of her betrayal. Bella's response was cold, calculated. "Alex, dear, it's not my fault you can't keep a man interested. Maybe if you were a little less mundane." Those words, sharp and cruel, cut deeper than any physical wound. I looked at Mark, searching for something, anything that would reassure me. But all I saw was a man caught in the crossfire, unsure of his standing. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. "Mark, we're done," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Mark's face crumpled, a mix of hurt and confusion. "Alex, please, let's talk about this." But I was past talking. I turned to Bella, my former friend, now nothing more than a stranger. "And you, Bella, enjoy the victory. I hope it was worth it." With those final words, I walked away, leaving behind the shattered pieces of what I once thought was unbreakable. The pain was raw, a gaping wound in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a burning determination. Bella had taken something precious from me, but she didn't realize the war she had started. I would rebuild, stronger and wiser, and when the time was right, Bella would know the true cost of her actions. The high school reunion was supposed to be a night of nostalgia, a chance to relive the carefree days of youth. Instead, it became a battleground. The moment I entered the decorated gymnasium, I knew I had walked into enemy territory. There she was, Bella, holding court in the center of the room, radiant and confident, basking in the admiration of our former classmates. The sight of her stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me: anger, betrayal, and a burning desire for retribution. I tried to keep a low profile, sticking to the fringes, but fate had other plans. "Hey, Alexandra, over here! Come sit with us!" called out an old classmate, waving enthusiastically. Before I could decline, I was swept up in a tide of people and deposited right next to Bella. Her smile was a masterclass in duplicity. "Alexandra, darling, it's been too long," she cooed, her eyes glinting with unspoken triumph. I forced a smile, keeping my voice even. "Yes, Bella, it's been a while." The evening wore on, a parade of small talk and reminiscing. Bella played the part of the beloved high school idol flawlessly, her every word and gesture seemingly perfect, but I knew better. Beneath that polished exterior was the heart of a viper. As the conversation shifted to life updates, I braced myself. "So, Alexandra, what's new with you? Still with Mark?" Bella asked, her voice honeyed with false concern. The question was a knife, and she wielded it expertly. "No, Bella, Mark and I are no longer together," I replied, keeping my emotions in check. Bella's expression was one of feigned shock. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But I'm sure a catch like you won't be single for long." Her words were a charade, a performance for the audience we had. I could feel the eyes of our classmates on us, sensing the undercurrents of tension. "I'm focusing on myself right now, Bella. Relationships aren't a priority," I said, meeting her gaze steadily. Bella laughed, a sound that set my teeth on edge. "Oh, Alex, always the independent one. But you know what they say, the clock is ticking." Her insinuation was clear, a barbed reminder of societal expectations. I felt a flush of anger but held it back. Now was not the time for an outburst. The night dragged on, a torturous affair of forced smiles and polite applause. As I lay in bed later that night, Bella's words echoed in my mind. She had taken pleasure in my pain, reveling in my discomfort. But as I closed my eyes, a plan began to form. Bella thought she had won, but the game was far from over. I would take my time crafting a revenge that would leave no doubt about who the true victor was. Bella had made a grave mistake in underestimating me, and she would soon learn just how costly that mistake was. The confrontation with Bella at my parents' house was unexpected and explosive. She arrived unannounced, her face twisted in a mix of anger and desperation. "What do you want, Bella?" I asked, my voice cool as I opened the door to her furious knocking. "I want my money, Alexandra. The money you owe me," she spat, her eyes blazing. Confusion swept over me. "Money? What are you talking about? I don't owe you anything." "Don't play dumb. The $600,000 you took from Mark. You're going to pay it back." Bella's accusation was ludicrous, yet her conviction was unsettling. "Bella, you've lost your mind. I never took any money from Mark," I countered, struggling to maintain my composure in the face of her absurd claim. Her laugh was bitter, filled with contempt. "Oh, please. You think I don't know about the debts? Mark told me everything. You bled him dry with your extravagant lifestyle, and now I'm paying for it." The pieces clicked into place, a sickening realization dawning on me. Mark's financial troubles, which he had always been so vague about, were now being twisted into a weapon by Bella. "Bella, listen to yourself. You're being played. I never took any money from Mark. This is his doing, not mine." I tried to reason with her, but my words fell on deaf ears. "Save it, Alexandra. I know your type, always playing the victim. Well, not anymore. You're going to pay back every cent, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are." Bella's threat was laced with venom, her desperation turning to malice. As she stormed off, I stood there, shaken but resolute. This was no longer just about a broken heart or a tarnished friendship. This was war. Over the next few days, I began to gather information, digging into Mark's financial history. It didn't take long to uncover a trail of deceit and manipulation. He was in deep, and he had dragged Bella down with him. Armed with this knowledge, I arranged a meeting with Bella. We met at a quiet park, away from prying eyes. She arrived, her usual confidence replaced with a wary defensiveness. "Bella, I'm not here to fight. I have something you need to see," I said, extending an envelope towards her. She took it hesitantly, her eyes scanning the documents inside. As the truth dawned on her, her face paled. the realization of Mark's betrayal hitting her like a physical blow. This can't be, she stammered, her facade crumbling. I was never the enemy, Bella. It was Mark all along. He used us both, I said, not without a tinge of sympathy. For a moment there was a flicker of the old Bella, the friend I once knew, but it was quickly snuffed out, replaced by a hardened, bitter shell. This changes nothing between us, Alexandra. You may not have taken the money, but you're still the reason my life is in shambles, she said, her voice cold. As she walked away, I knew that our bridge was burnt, but I also knew that justice, in its own twisted way, had been served. Bella had been humbled, her illusions shattered, and while it brought me no joy, it was a necessary closure. I walked away from the park, a sense of finality washing over me. The chapter of Bella and Mark was closed, but my story was far from over. Life has a way of coming full circle. Standing in my new home, a modest yet cozy place filled with love and laughter, I couldn't help but reflect on the tumultuous journey that had led me here. I had moved on, found love again with someone who valued the simplicity of life as much as I did. We had a beautiful son, whose innocent laughter was a balm to the scars of my past. Yet the echoes of the past still lingered. News of Bella reached me, a bitter reminder of the storm we had weathered. Her fall from grace was as swift as it was severe. After the truth about Mark's deceit and her own misplaced accusations came to light, her life unraveled. The queen bee of our small town had lost her sting, her followers dissipating as quickly as they had gathered. I heard she moved into a small, run-down apartment, a far cry from the lavish lifestyle she once boasted. Her dreams of a grand wedding and a life of luxury with Mark had crumbled to dust, leaving her with a harsh dose of reality. I didn't take pleasure in her downfall. There was no satisfaction in seeing the once mighty Bella reduced to a shadow of her former self. If anything, it was a somber reminder of how fragile our perceptions of happiness can be. "Mommy, look!" My son's voice pulled me from my reverie, his small hands tugging at my skirt. In his hands he held a drawing, a crude depiction of our family. It was us, him, me, and my partner, all smiles and stick figures. "It's beautiful, honey," I said, scooping him into my arms. His laughter filled the room, a sound so pure and full of life. As I put him to bed that night, I realized that this was what true happiness looked like. It wasn't about status, money, or revenge. It was about the simple moments, the ones that often go unnoticed. Lying in bed, I thought about Bella one last time. Our friendship, once a source of comfort and joy, had become a battlefield of envy and betrayal. But it had also taught me valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and the power of letting go. I hoped in time Bella would find her own path to redemption. Perhaps one day she would understand that the ordinary life she once scorned was, in fact, a life filled with extraordinary moments. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a silent wish for her, a wish for peace, for growth, and for the wisdom to see the beauty in life's simplicity. The story of Bella and me was over, but my story, our story, was just beginning.
The smell of fresh coffee and victory fills my lungs as I arrange the last pastry in our display case. Perfect gleaming rows of croissants and danishes catch the morning light, each one placed with the precision that drove my mother crazy during planning. But today, watching the sun stream through the front windows of Haven and Home, I know every obsessive detail was worth it. I step back to take in the full view. Exposed brick walls, leather armchairs, the vintage espresso machine I spent 3 months' savings on. My family's dream, finally real. More accurately, my parents' dream that became my obsession over the past 2 years, while my sister Delilah finished grad school. "Everything looks incredible, Charlie." Simone appears beside me, clipboard in hand. "Your mom's going to flip when she sees what you've done with the place." I check my phone again. 7:42 a.m. Mom should have been here 40 minutes ago for our pre-opening walkthrough. Even Dad's running late, which isn't like him. My texts sit unanswered. "They're probably just stuck in traffic," I say, more to convince myself than Simone. "Did you finish setting up the register?" "All set. Though I still think you should have gone with the newer model." The bell above the door chimes, and my heart leaps. But it's just Remington from the real estate office next door, early for his usual Americano. His eyes widen as he takes in the space. "Wow! You actually pulled it off, Ford," He runs a hand along the reclaimed wood counter. Place looks nothing like the dump it was before. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I roll my eyes, but can't help smiling. After months of his skeptical comments while I renovated, the surprise on his face feels like its own victory. My phone buzzes, and I snatch it up. A text from Mom. In a meeting. Won't make it this morning. Good luck with opening. The words hit like a punch to the gut. 2 years of 4 a.m. bakery runs, maxed out credit cards, and endless permit applications. And she can't spare an hour? I force down the familiar ache of disappointment. Everything okay? Simone touches my arm. Yeah, just... I shake my head. Mom's not coming. Meeting, apparently. Oh, honey. Her face says what I won't let myself think. That this is about more than just being busy. I straighten my apron. It's fine. We've got this. Start the coffee brewing? The morning rush keeps me distracted, losing myself in the rhythm of drinks and small talk. But by noon, the nagging worry I've been pushing down starts to surface again. Still no word from Dad. Delilah hasn't responded to my excited texts about our first day sales. When the lunch crowd thins, I duck into the back office to call Mom's cell. Straight to voicemail. I try her office line instead. Abigail Ford's office, her assistant answers. Hi, Janet, it's Charlie. Is my mom available? A pause. I'm sorry, she's in meetings all day. Would you like to leave a message? Could you at least tell me what meeting? She was supposed to be here this morning for our cafe opening. Another pause, longer this time. I think you should talk to your mother directly about that. Ice spreads through my chest. Janet, what's going on? I really can't. I'm sorry, Charlie. I have to go. The line goes dead. I sit perfectly still, Janet's awkward hesitation playing on repeat in my head. Something is very wrong. My phone lights up. Delilah calling, finally. Where is everyone? I demand. What's happening? Charlie! Her voice is small, guilty. I'm so sorry. Mom made me promise not to say anything until after the papers were signed. What papers? The sale papers for the cafe. The room tilts sideways. What are you talking about? Mom's been negotiating with a developer. They're turning this whole block into luxury condos. She signed the final agreement this morning. Static fills my ears. But this is our place, our family's dream. It was never our dream, Shar. It was yours. Delilah's words come faster now, like she needs to get them out. Mom only backed it because she knew the property value would triple once the area got rezoned. She's been planning this flip since before you started renovating. I press my palm against the cool brick wall, struggling to breathe. Every detail I agonized over, every penny I poured in, it was all just part of my mother's investment strategy. And everyone knew except me. The new owners take possession next week. Delilah continues softly. Mom said to tell you not to make a scene. She'll explain everything at dinner on Sunday. The brick scrapes my skin as my hand curls into a fist. In the front of the cafe, I hear Simone greeting another customer, the bell chiming cheerfully. My cafe, my dream, my family's betrayal. Charlie, are you there? I end the call without answering. The taste of victory from this morning turns to ash in my mouth as I stare at the empire I built on a foundation of lies. I spend the next 3 hours methodically destroying my office. Every carefully chosen design magazine, every handwritten recipe, every family photo gets shredded into confetti. When I run out of paper, I start on the vintage coffee cups I spent months collecting from estate sales. The sound of ceramic shattering against brick is almost satisfying. Simone finds me sitting cross-legged among the wreckage, scrolling through real estate records on my laptop. Jesus, Charlie! She picks her way through the debris. I heard everything from the security camera feed. I'm so... Don't. My voice comes out raw. Don't say you're sorry. Help me figure out how long they've been planning this. She settles beside me, careful to avoid the ceramic shards. Maybe there's a way to contest the sale? You put so much of your own money in. They thought of that. I turn the laptop to show her. Mom had me sign partnership documents last year, remember? Buried in the fine print was a clause giving her final say on all property decisions. I was so excited about finally getting the funding, I didn't even read it carefully. That manipulative bee. Simone catches herself. What are you going to do? My phone lights up again. Another call from Delilah. I silence it without looking. First, I'm going to figure out exactly how deep this betrayal goes. Then, I close the laptop with a snap. Then I'm going to take everything from them. Charlie, don't try to talk me out of it. I stand, brushing dust from my pants. You didn't see Mom's signature on these documents, dated 3 months ago, when she was still helping me pick out paint colors and taste-testing scone recipes. She watched me pour my life into this place, knowing she was going to sell it out from under me. The bell chimes up front. Simone touches my arm. Take a breath. I'll handle customers for now. But it's not a customer. It's Remington, looking unusually serious. Heard about the sale, he says without preamble. Whole office is buzzing about it. Luxury condos, right? I nod stiffly. Thing is, he glances around before continuing quieter. There's no way they just signed those papers this morning. Development deals like this take months of negotiations, permits, zoning changes. Someone would have had to grease a lot of wheels to fast-track it. Someone like my mother. The pieces click into place. She's on the zoning board. Exactly. And word is, she's been pushing hard for this neighborhood's revitalization for almost a year now. He meets my eyes. Right around when she suddenly agreed to back your cafe. My laugh comes out bitter. So I wasn't just a pawn in her investment scheme. I was the perfect cover story while she orchestrated the whole thing. My phone buzzes again. Dad this time. I answer on speaker, past Caring, who hears. Princess, please don't be upset. Don't call me that. My voice shakes. Did you know? His silence is answer enough. How long? Your mother. He sighs heavily. She has a vision for this neighborhood. The cafe was her way of letting you be part of it. By lying to me? By watching me kill myself working while you all laughed behind my back? No one was laughing, sweetheart. Your sister understood the bigger picture. She's always had a better head for business. The rage that's been simmering all morning erupts. Because you and Mom made sure of that, didn't you? Paying for her MBA while I worked 3 jobs to fund this place? Telling me I needed real-world experience before grad school. It was never about making me stronger. You just needed to keep me desperate enough to play my part. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? That I actually believed you were proud of me. My voice cracks. That I thought if I worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, I could finally be the daughter you wanted. But I was just a useful idiot, wasn't I? Remington's hand appears on my shoulder, steadying. I hadn't realized I was swaying. Come to dinner on Sunday, Dad pleads. Your mother will explain everything. The developers are offering you a position managing their new retail space. I end the call. The silence rings in my ears as I turn to Remington. Those permit records you mentioned, how hard would they be to access? He raises an eyebrow. Technically, very. But I might know someone in the records office who owes me a favor. Good. I walk to my desk, pull out the folder where I've kept every receipt, every contract, every email from the past 2 years. Because I'm going to need proof of exactly how long they've been planning this. And then, I'm going to use my mother's own paperwork to take this whole thing apart. You sure about this? But he's already reaching for the folder. Could get messy. I look around at my destroyed office, at the shattered pieces of my dream scattered across the floor. Good, I say. I'm counting on it. The fluorescent lights in my mother's empty office cast everything in a sickly glow. 3 a.m., and I'm sitting at her desk, practicing her signature for the 4th time. Each stroke feels like another brick in the wall I'm building between who I was and who I need to be. You don't have to do this, Simone whispers from her lookout position by the door. We could still try legal channels. Already tried. I don't look up from the document. Called 6 lawyers yesterday. The partnership agreement is ironclad. This is the only way. The signature flows easier now, muscle memory taking over. I hold the finished document up to the original. Nearly perfect. 2 years of watching Mom sign cafe paperwork is finally paying off. What if you get caught? That's why we're here at 3 a.m. I start on the next form. Mom never comes in before 9. By the time she notices these new partnership documents in the system, the changes will be locked in. Simone shifts uncomfortably. This isn't you, Charlie. All this sneaking around, forging signatures. The old me died the moment they signed those sale papers. The pen scratches loudly in the silence. Besides, I learned from the best, didn't I? Mom spent months forging the perfect daughter. Now she gets to see what her creation can really do. A noise in the hallway makes us both freeze. Footsteps getting closer. Security guard, Simone breathes. Regular patrol. I slide the documents into my bag as she kills the lights. We press ourselves against the wall, hardly breathing, as a flashlight beam sweeps past the frosted glass. One eternal moment later, the footsteps fade. That was too close. Simone's voice shakes. Let's get out of here. Just one more. I pull out the final document, the one that will give me controlling interest in the cafe property. 10 minutes. Charlie, I said 10 minutes. The words come out sharper than intended. In the dim light from the window, I see her flinch. Sorry, I say softer. I need to finish this. She's quiet for a long moment. Do you remember what you said when you first showed me the cafe plans? That it was going to be a place where people felt at home, felt cared for, like family should make you feel. The pen trembles in my hand. That was before I knew what family really meant. Was it? Or was that the real you before all this? The real me was an idiot who trusted too easily. I force the pen back to paper. This is survival. No, this is revenge, and it's eating you alive. She moves toward the door. Call me when my best friend comes back. The door clicks shut behind her, leaving me alone in the dark with my forgeries in fury. But my hand won't stop shaking, making the signature look wrong, desperate. Amateur. My phone buzzes. A text from Remington. Got the permit records. You need to see this. I pack up quickly, the last document unsigned. The night guard's footsteps have faded to the other end of the building, leaving the hallway clear. But instead of the elevator, my feet carry me to the conference room where it all started. The wall of photos stops me cold. Decades of my mother's vision for the city. Development projects, ribbon cuttings, charity galas. In every image, she's smiling that perfect smile, the one I spent years trying to mirror. Only now do I notice how it never quite reaches her eyes. My fingers trace the newest edition. Me at the cafe's soft opening last week, beaming between Mom and Delilah. Mom's hand rests possessively on my shoulder, while Delilah holds up the ceremonial key. The photo was her idea. Evidence of her long game, hiding in plain sight. My phone buzzes again. Remington. Seriously, this changes everything. I stare at my frozen smile in the photo, remembering how proud I felt in that moment, how desperate for their approval. The memory turns my stomach now. Simone's words echo. This is revenge, and it's eating you alive. She's right, but not in the way she thinks. These amateur forgeries, this middle-of-the-night skulking, it's exactly what they'd expect from me. The daughter who needs to be managed, controlled, protected from her own incompetence. I take a picture of the wall display, then carefully remove the cafe opening photo and slip it into my bag. Time to stop playing by their rules. On my way, I text Remington. And I need everything you have on the other properties Mom's developed. Every permit, every partner, every paper trail. If I'm going to destroy my mother's empire, I need to understand how she built it first. Starting with whatever's in those records that has Remington so rattled. The real game begins now. Holy shit! I spread the permit documents across Remington's desk, each one revealing another layer of my mother's deception. She's been planning this for 3 years, before we even found the cafe location. That's not the interesting part. Remington pulls out a thick folder, Look at the ownership structures for her last 5 projects. My eyes scan the documents, catching on familiar names. These shell companies, they're all registered to Delilah? Your sister's been busy since grad school. He taps one particularly dense document. Each property gets transferred through 3 or 4 entities before the final sale. Makes it nearly impossible to trace the money trail. The pieces click together with sickening clarity. That's why Mom paid for her MBA. She wasn't just playing favorites, she was grooming her replacement. And building a perfect shield. Remington leans back. Your sister's name on everything means your mother stays clean if anything goes wrong. My laugh comes out harsh. Delilah probably thinks it's some kind of trust fund. She always did believe whatever pretty story Mom fed her. You sure about that? Something in his tone makes me look up. What do you mean? He slides another document across the desk. Building permits for your cafe renovation. Signed by Delilah 3 months ago. The familiar signature blurs as my vision swims. She knew. The whole time I was calling her excited about paint samples and coffee suppliers, she knew it was temporary. There's more. He hesitates. The developer buying your place? Their CEO had dinner with your sister last week. Very cozy, according to my source. The betrayal hits differently this time. Not a sharp stab, but a cold, spreading numbness. She's not just Mom's pawn. She's an active player. Charlie! Remington's voice softens. Maybe you should talk to her before... A knock at his office door cuts him off. Through the glass, I see Delilah herself, looking perfectly put together in her business casual armor. Speaking of the devil, Remington mutters. I quickly gather the documents, but not fast enough. Delilah's already opening the door. Char? Her surprise looks genuine. What are you doing here? Just getting some advice about property law. I force a smile. You know, for future reference. Oh, honey. She steps closer, concern dripping from every syllable. I know you're upset about the cafe, but you need to trust Mom on this. The developer's retail position would be perfect for you. Less stress, better benefits. Like the benefits you got? The words escape before I can stop them. Must be nice, having your name on all those properties. She stiffens almost imperceptibly. I don't know what you're talking about. No? I pull out the permit with her signature. Maybe this will refresh your memory. Color drains from her face as she recognizes it. Where did you get that? Same place I got proof of your dinner with the developers. Tell me, did you order champagne to celebrate screwing over your sister? Yeah, it wasn't like that. She glances at Remington, who's suddenly very interested in his computer screen. Mom said this was the best way to protect everyone. The market's changing. We needed to adapt. Save the corporate speak for your shareholders. I stand, gathering the documents. I got enough of Mom's manipulation. I don't need yours too. Please. She grabs my arm as I pass. You don't understand what you're getting into. Mom's got everything locked down legally. If you try to fight this, you'll what? Have me arrested? Ruin my reputation? I lean close, dropping my voice. Guess what, sis? You already did your worst. Now it's my turn. Charlie, wait. But I'm already walking away, her protests fading behind me. In the elevator, my phone buzzes with a text from Simone. Please tell me you're not still going through with this. Another buzz. Mom this time. Delilah says you're upset. Let's discuss over dinner Sunday. Everything will make sense once you see the bigger picture. The bigger picture. Like I'm some child who can't grasp adult concepts. My finger hovers over the reply button, tempted to unleash everything I've discovered. Instead, I text Remington. Need one more favor. Can your records contact get building inspection histories? His reply comes quickly. Probably. Why? Because every empire has weak spots. Mom's been doing this too long not to have cut corners somewhere. I step out of the elevator into the bright afternoon sun, my path suddenly clear. Mom thinks she's protected, hiding behind Delilah's name and legal paperwork. But I learned from watching her. The bigger the facade, the more devastating the fall when it finally crumbles. Time to start pulling threads and see what unravels. Sunday dinner arrives with the weight of an execution date. I stand outside my parents' house, the familiar colonial facade now seeming as fake as everything else. Through the window, I can see them all gathered in the dining room. Mom at the head of the table, Dad and Delilah flanking her like loyal courtiers. My phone buzzes. Remington. Building inspector's report just came in. Multiple violations on the Harrison Street project. Big ones. I smile, tucking the phone away. Let them think I'm here to beg forgiveness. The manila envelope in my bag holds a different kind of absolution. Mom's face brightens with practiced warmth when I enter. Darling, we were getting worried. Traffic? I accept her air kiss, noting how she angles us toward the window. Always conscious of appearances, even now. Drink? Dad offers weakly, but I'm already sitting, pulling out the envelope. Actually, I thought we could discuss the Harrison Street apartments first. You know, the ones Delilah supposedly owns? The crystal glasses clink as Mom's hand trembles slightly. This isn't the time. 3 collapsed support beams. I start laying out photos. Faulty electrical work, asbestos removal records mysteriously missing. Amazing what building inspectors find when they're properly motivated to look. Delilah's face goes pale. Those properties are up to code. Are they? Because these reports suggest otherwise. And since your name's on everything, I let the implication hang. Enough! Mom's voice cracks like a whip. Whatever game you're playing. Game? I laugh, the sound brittle. That's rich coming from you. Tell me, how long did you workshop the Café Con? Was it before or after you decided Delilah would be your perfect front person? I was protecting you. Mom's composure cracks. You're too emotional, too invested. Delilah understands business requires distance. Distance? My voice rises. I killed myself making your dream work. Every detail, every decision, I did exactly what you wanted. And look how you're reacting now. She gestures at the scattered photos. This tantrum proves my point. You're not ready for real responsibility. The words hit like physical blows, but I force myself to stay calm. You're right. I'm not ready for your kind of responsibility. I'm not ready to sacrifice people for profit or use my own daughter as a human shield. That's not, Delilah starts, but Mom silences her with a look. What do you want, Charlie? Mom's voice turns businesslike. Money? A different position in the company? I want you to feel what I felt. I pull out one final document. This is going to the housing authority tomorrow. Every violation, every shortcut, every shell company traced back to its source. Your empire burns, and Delilah takes the fall. Dad stands abruptly. You can't. Unless? I hold up a finger. You sign the cafe back to me, full ownership, no strings. The silence stretches like a wire about to snap. Mom's face hardens into something I've never seen before. Or maybe never let myself see. You would destroy your sister's future over a coffee shop? You would sacrifice one daughter to protect another? I counter. Actually, don't answer that. You already did. Delilah's chair scrapes back. This is insane. I never wanted any of this. The properties, the cafe, it was all Mom's plan. Delilah! Mom's sharp tone makes her flinch. No, she needs to hear this. Delilah turns to me, eyes bright. I tried to tell Mom the cafe should be yours completely. That's why I signed those permits. I thought if I played along, I could convince her to let you keep it. Liar. But uncertainty creeps in. You had dinner with the developers. To try to stop the sale, but Mom had already… She deflates. It didn't matter. Nothing I said mattered. Mom stands, ice in her voice. That's enough. Charlie, you're clearly not thinking clearly. We'll discuss this when you're rational. We'll discuss it now. I pull out my phone, finger hovering over the housing authority's number. Tick-tock, Mom. What's worth more, your pride or Delilah's future? The mask finally cracks completely. For the first time, I see raw fear in my mother's eyes. Not for me, not for Delilah, but for herself. Her carefully constructed world teetering on the edge. You would really do this? She whispers. To your own family? I think of all the times I measured myself against her impossible standards. All the years spent trying to earn the love that came so easily to Delilah. All the dreams sacrificed on the altar of her approval. I learned from the best. I slide the cafe ownership papers across the table. Start signing. Behind me, I hear Delilah's quiet sob. But I don't turn around. Can't turn around. Because if I see her pain, I might remember the sister who used to braid my hair and share her secrets. And right now, I need to be my mother's daughter, willing to burn it all down for the win. The cafe keys feel heavier now, weighted with victory and something else I can't name. I've been sitting in my reclaimed office for hours, watching dawn creep through the windows. But the triumph I expected hasn't arrived. My phone lights up again. Another missed call from Delilah. That makes 17 since last night. I silence it just as Remington appears in the doorway, looking unusually serious. "Your sister's downstairs," he says. "Looks like she's been crying. Tell her I'm busy." I start shuffling papers randomly. "I have a cafe to reopen." "She says it's about your mom." He hesitates. "And something you need to see before it's too late." The familiar manipulation makes me laugh. Too late for what? Mom already signed everything over. Game over. Maybe you should hear her out. Why? I look up sharply. Whose side are you on? Yours. His voice softens. Which is why I'm telling you, something feels off about all this. The way your mom gave in so easily. Because I had leverage. Because she let you have leverage. He steps fully into the office. Think about it. A woman that calculating, that controlling. You really think she didn't have contingency plans? That she just happened to leave those building records where they could be found? Ice slides down my spine, but I force it away. You're the one who found them. Through a contact who works for a firm that handles your mom's legal documents. He meets my eyes. It's possible I was meant to find them. The implications hit like waves. Every document, every revelation, every move I thought was my own, all potentially pieces in my mother's larger game. Send her up, I whisper. Delilah looks smaller somehow when she enters, none of her usual polish. She's clutching a thick folder like a shield. Make it quick, I say before she can speak. I have work to do. No, you don't. She drops the folder on my desk. The cafe is being condemned. What? Mom filed the paperwork this morning. Emergency structural issues. Her voice cracks. The inspection team arrives in an hour. She can't. But even as I say it, I'm remembering her expression last night. Not defeated, but calculating. I have the ownership papers, dating back to the original partnership agreement. Delilah pulls out more documents. Which means you're legally responsible for all building code violations from the past 2 years, including the ones Mom deliberately created.
I remember the day I moved in with Michael and his parents. It was a sunny morning in June, the kind that held promises of new beginnings. Michael and I had been dating for a year, and everything about our relationship felt right. We were young, in love, and ready to start a new chapter together. The move was significant for me. Leaving my small hometown and moving 5 hours away to live with Michael was a leap of faith. My parents were supportive but cautious, reminding me to always keep my independence in mind. Michael had asked for their blessing, which they gave after many heart-to-heart conversations. His parents' house was a cozy 2-story building with a welcoming porch and a well-tended garden. The first time I visited, I was struck by its warmth. Michael's parents, Linda and Robert, greeted me with open arms. Linda was a petite woman with a smile that lit up the room, and Robert was a tall, jovial man who could make anyone laugh within minutes of meeting him. I felt a connection with them instantly. During those early visits, Linda and I would spend hours chatting in the kitchen, baking cookies, or preparing dinner. She had a way of making everything seem effortless, and I admired her for that. Robert was equally engaging, always ready with a story or a joke, making sure everyone around him was having a good time. Moving in felt like the natural next step. Michael and I talked about it for months, and when the day finally came, it was exciting. My stuff fit into the room Michael and I shared, and his parents made sure I felt welcome. Linda hugged me tightly, saying, "Welcome to the family, dear." The first few weeks were like living in a dream. I was getting along great with Michael's parents. We had family dinners every night, where we shared stories and laughed over Robert's jokes. Linda would sometimes whisper advice about handling Michael's quirks, and I found her insights invaluable. I noticed how they all worked as a unit, and I did my best to fit into their rhythm. I helped with chores, trying not to step on anyone's toes. Michael seemed happy, and seeing him in his element, surrounded by his family, made me love him even more. However, as weeks turned into months, the initial excitement started to wane. I began noticing little things, subtle shifts in behavior that I hadn't picked up on before. It was nothing major at first, just a sense of something being slightly off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt a change in the air, a tension that hadn't been there before. I shrugged it off initially, attributing it to the adjustment phase of living together. But as more time passed, these small changes began to form a pattern, one that I couldn't ignore for long. It was the beginning of what would become a challenging journey, one that would test my strength, my relationship, and my understanding of what it means to be part of a family. As autumn set in, the warmth of the summer months seemed to fade, not just outside, but within the walls of the house as well. The subtle changes I had noticed earlier were becoming more pronounced, more frequent. It was as if a different side of Linda and Robert was slowly revealing itself, one I hadn't seen before. One evening, I was in the kitchen, washing dishes after dinner. It was something I had done many times before, but this time something was different. I had stepped away for a moment, leaving a couple of my dishes in the sink. When I returned, I found that Linda had washed everything else but had left my dishes untouched, set aside as if they were somehow separate, unclean. At first, I thought it might have been an oversight, but it happened again, and then again. It wasn't just the dishes. It was little things, like Linda moving my belongings to a corner of the room, or Robert making offhand comments about my job or my habits. It was never anything overtly hostile, but it stung all the same. I tried to talk to Michael about it to see if he had noticed anything. His response was always the same, a shrug and a quick, "That's just how they are, they don't mean anything by it." But I wasn't convinced. It felt personal, intentional. One incident in particular left a deep mark. It was a simple, casual cruelty, the kind that slices through you because it comes when your guard is down. I was serving Michael his dinner when Linda, with a pointed look, asked, "You're eating again?" Her tone was light, almost joking, but the implication was clear. I felt my face flush with embarrassment and shame. I had always been self-conscious about my weight, a fact that Linda knew. Her comment hit me hard, and from that day on I started skipping meals, eating only when I was sure I was alone. The joy I once found in cooking and sharing meals with the family vanished, replaced by anxiety and a deepening sense of isolation. Michael didn't notice, or if he did, he never said anything. It felt as though I was becoming invisible in my own home, my presence tolerated rather than welcomed. The relationship I had thought so fondly of with Linda and Robert was crumbling, and I couldn't understand why. I started spending more time in our room, away from the family. The house, once a symbol of a new chapter in my life with Michael, now felt like a trap, confining and cold. I felt alone, misunderstood, and increasingly unwanted. I clung to the belief that this was just a phase, that things would get better with time. But deep down, I knew that something fundamental had shifted. I was no longer just Michael's girlfriend. I was an outsider, living under the same roof but feeling miles apart. The growing tension in the house was like a silent storm, brewing beneath the surface, waiting to break. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, that storm would soon find its voice in ways I could never have anticipated. Winter arrived with its short days and long, cold nights, mirroring the growing chill inside the house. The unease I felt around Linda was now compounded by a new, more unsettling problem: Robert's behavior. Robert, once the jovial storyteller, began showing a side of himself that was far less amiable, especially after he'd had a few drinks. His humor, which I once found endearing, turned biting and cruel. He'd make offhand remarks about people's appearances, often focusing on their weight, and laugh it off as though it were all in good fun. But the laughter never reached his eyes. One evening, his comments became personal. He made a joke about my weight in front of Michael and his friends. I excused myself quickly, holding back tears until I was safely in the bathroom. Michael came to check on me later, brushing off his father's words as just Dad being Dad. But it was more than that. It was humiliation, served coldly and publicly. The incident that truly shook me happened when Michael was out of town for work. I was taking a shower, lost in thought, when I heard the bathroom door handle jiggle. I had locked the door, a habit I had formed since moving in. Through the frosted glass, I saw Robert's silhouette. He knocked, his voice slurred, asking if I needed help. I replied sharply that I was fine, but my heart was racing. The thought of what might have happened if I hadn't locked the door sent shivers down my spine. I confronted Michael about it when he returned, but he seemed unable to grasp the severity of the situation. He assured me it was a misunderstanding, that his dad probably just didn't realize I was in the shower. But I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability, the sense that I wasn't safe in my own home. Amidst all this, I continued to help Linda and Robert with their needs. I assisted Linda with her medical paperwork, drove her to appointments 2 hours away, and even missed classes to be there for her. For Robert, I helped with their immigration papers, communicating with lawyers and organizing documents. I poured myself into these tasks, hoping to bridge the growing gap between us. But my efforts seemed to go unnoticed, or worse, unappreciated. The more I did, the more I felt like I was being used, a means to an end rather than a valued member of the family. It was a stark contrast to the early days of baking cookies and sharing laughs. Now every smile felt forced, every conversation strained. I confided in Michael about how I felt, but his reactions only added to my distress. He accused me of being ungrateful, of not understanding the sacrifices his parents had made for him. He called me a spoiled brat for complaining about people who had done so much for him. I felt increasingly isolated, not just from his parents, but from Michael as well. The man I moved 5 hours to be with, the man I loved, seemed to be on a completely different page. I began to question everything about our relationship, about the decision to move in with his family, about who I was in this dynamic. I was stuck in a home that no longer felt like home, with people who saw me as an outsider and a partner who didn't seem to see me at all. The feeling of going crazy, of not being able to trust my own feelings, was overwhelming. I was lost, struggling to find my footing in a place where I once thought I'd stand firm. The tension in the house had reached a palpable level, like a thick fog that refused to lift. I knew I couldn't continue living this way, walking on eggshells, feeling unwelcome in my own home. It was time for a direct conversation with Michael, one where I laid out everything that had been weighing on me. I chose a quiet evening, when Michael and I were alone in our room, to broach the subject. My heart pounded as I started to speak. my words laced with a mix of frustration and desperation. I told him about the growing distance with his parents, the hurtful comments, the incidents that made me feel unsafe, and how his reactions only added to my feelings of isolation. Michael listened, but his expression grew increasingly defensive. When I finished, he let out a long sigh and shook his head. "Anna, you're overthinking things. My parents are good people. They've been through a lot. You just need to try harder to understand them." His words felt like a slap. Try harder? I had been bending over backward to fit into his family, to be helpful, understanding, and patient. But it was never enough. And now, instead of support, I was met with accusations of overreacting. The argument that followed was heated and painful. Michael accused me of being ungrateful, of not appreciating the roof over my head and the efforts his parents had made to welcome me. He said I was acting like a spoiled brat, creating problems where there were none. I tried to explain how his words hurt me, how they made me feel alone and unsupported. But the more I spoke, the more he seemed to withdraw, his words turning colder, more dismissive. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling a chasm growing between Michael and me. The man I loved, the man I had moved cities for, was telling me that my feelings, my experiences, were invalid. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality, questioning my own perceptions and judgments. The following days were a blur of tension and awkward silences. Michael and I were like strangers, passing each other in the house without a word. His parents seemed oblivious to the storm brewing, or perhaps they chose to ignore it. I began to wonder if I was indeed the problem. Was I being too sensitive? Was I expecting too much? These questions haunted me, eroding my confidence and sense of self. I felt trapped, not just in the house, but in my own mind, doubting everything I thought I knew. But amidst the turmoil, a small voice inside me whispered that this wasn't right. I couldn't be the only one at fault here. The treatment I received, the lack of support from Michael, the feeling of being an outsider in my own home, these were not figments of my imagination. The more I reflected, the clearer it became. I needed to find a way out of this cycle of doubt and unhappiness. I needed to reclaim my sense of self, to find my voice again. But the path to doing so was murky and fraught with uncertainty. I was standing at a crossroads with each direction leading into the unknown. As winter gave way to the early signs of spring, the internal storm I was weathering showed no signs of subsiding. The house felt colder than ever, a stark contrast to the blooming world outside. Inside, I was battling a turmoil that seemed to grow with each passing day. I spent long hours in our room, alone with my thoughts, reflecting on everything that had happened. My relationship with Michael, once the source of so much joy and hope, now felt like a maze of confusion and pain. I loved him, but that love was entangled in a web of resentment, misunderstanding, and deep emotional disconnect. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had changed since moving in with Michael and his parents. I had always prided myself on being strong, independent, and confident, but now I found myself questioning my every move, doubting my every thought. The vibrant, self-assured woman I once was seemed like a distant memory. I also reflected on the sacrifices I had made. Moving 5 hours away from my family had been a significant step, one I had taken out of love and trust. But now I felt isolated, not just from my family but from the person I used to be. My world had shrunk to the confines of this house, and with it my sense of self. My conversations with Michael had become sparse and functional. The warmth we once shared replaced by a cautious politeness. It was as if we were both treading on thin ice, afraid that any wrong step could shatter the fragile surface under our feet. In moments of solitude, I found myself yearning for the comfort of my family. I missed the easy laughter, the unconditional support, the feeling of being understood and accepted for who I was. I missed being able to share my thoughts without fear of judgment or dismissal. The realization hit me hard. I was losing myself in this relationship, in this house. The Anna that moved in months ago was not the Anna I saw in the mirror now. I had become a shadow, a version of myself that was unfamiliar and unsettling. The question of what to do next weighed heavily on my mind. Leaving seemed like the obvious solution, but it wasn't that simple. There were financial considerations, the fear of being alone, and the daunting prospect of starting over. But staying meant continuing to live in an environment that was slowly eroding my sense of self-worth and happiness. I sought counsel from friends and even considered therapy. Each conversation brought new perspectives, but the decision ultimately was mine to make. It was clear that something had to change. I couldn't continue living in a state of perpetual unhappiness and self-doubt. As spring turned into summer, the decision crystallized in my mind. I needed to find my independence again, to reclaim the life I had before, a life where I felt strong, valued, and happy. The journey ahead would be challenging, but the first step, as always, is the hardest. As the summer sun brought warmth and light, I knew it was time to make some decisions. The resolve to change my situation had been growing, and now it was time to act. I started by seeking advice and support outside the walls of the house that had become my prison. Talking to friends was a balm for my weary soul. They listened, offered empathy, and reminded me of the person I used to be. Their words were like a mirror, reflecting a version of myself I had almost forgotten. It was during these conversations that I realized the importance of having a support system, people who saw me for who I truly was. I also sought professional help. The therapist I met with provided a safe space to unravel my thoughts and feelings. It was through these sessions that I began to understand the depth of the impact my living situation had on me. I was not crazy or overly sensitive. I was reacting to a genuinely challenging environment. Armed with this newfound clarity, I started exploring my options. I began saving money, cutting down on unnecessary expenses, and looking for affordable places I could move into. The idea of living on my own was daunting, but it also filled me with a sense of excitement and freedom. It was a tangible goal, a light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. The most challenging part was confronting Michael about our relationship. I chose a quiet evening when we were both calm and rested to have the conversation. I explained my feelings, my need for independence, and how our current living situation was affecting me. I told him that I was considering moving out, not to end our relationship, but to save it. Michael's reaction was mixed. He seemed to understand on some level why I felt the way I did. But there was also a sense of hurt, a feeling of being abandoned. We talked for hours, navigating our way through a maze of emotions and fears. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in months. Despite the pain and the uncertainty, there was a sense of relief in having everything out in the open. We agreed to give each other some space to think about what we both wanted from the relationship and our lives. The weeks that followed were a time of introspection and planning. I continued to save money, research apartments, and mentally prepare myself for the possibility of a new beginning. The decision to move out was not an easy one, but it felt right. It was a step towards reclaiming my independence, my sense of self. Through it all, I held on to the hope that Michael and I could find a way to navigate this new phase of our relationship. But I also knew that no matter what happened between us, I needed to be true to myself, to live a life where I felt respected, valued, and happy. The decision to move out was like turning the page to a new chapter in my life. It was a step filled with uncertainty, but also with a sense of empowerment. I had finally taken control of my situation, making a choice that prioritized my well-being. As I started packing my things, I felt a mix of emotions. There was sadness in leaving a place I had once hoped would be a long-term home, and in the strain it had placed on my relationship with Michael. But there was also a growing sense of excitement and liberation. I was about to embark on a journey of self-discovery, to rebuild the life I wanted on my own terms. The day I moved out, Michael helped me with my bags. Our goodbye was bittersweet. We promised to keep in touch, to try and work on our relationship from a new perspective. But there was also an unspoken understanding that things might never be the same again. That was a reality we both had to accept. Moving into my new apartment, a small but cozy space, was a breath of fresh air. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace. The walls of my new home were blank canvases, waiting for me to fill them with my own story, my own identity. In the weeks that followed, I focused on myself. I reconnected with hobbies and interests I had neglected, spent more time with friends and family, and continued my therapy sessions. Each day was a step towards healing, towards rebuilding the confidence and self-assuredness I had lost. My relationship with Michael evolved in unexpected ways. With the distance between us, we began to see each other and our relationship more clearly. We had deep, meaningful conversations about our needs and expectations. Sometimes they were difficult and emotional, but they were always honest. In this newfound space, I rediscovered parts of myself that I had lost. I rekindled my love for painting, a passion I had set aside in the chaos of the past months. I started a small freelance project, combining my artistic skills with a newfound sense of entrepreneurial spirit. It was a small step, but it filled me with a sense of purpose and joy. As summer turned to autumn, I looked back at the journey I had been on. It was a path marked by challenges, self-doubt, and pain, but also by growth, resilience, and self-discovery. I had learned the hard way that sometimes, to find your place in the world, you have to be willing to leave the comfort of what you know. My story with Michael was still being written. Whether we would find our way back to each other or forge separate paths, only time would tell. But one thing was clear: I was no longer the person who had moved into his parents' house all those months ago. I was stronger, wiser, and more in tune with who I was and what I wanted from life. And for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely excited about the future, about the possibilities that lay ahead. I had found my path forward, and I was ready to see where it would lead. "You want me to change my name?" I asked, disbelief and anger rising in my chest. "For what? A job? A family? A lie?" Richard looked at me with a cold, calculating gaze. "It's not just a job, Luna. It's an opportunity, and it's not just a name. It's an image." He leaned forward, his voice low and menacing. "And you'd better take it, or else. My name is Luna, a name as unique and mysterious as the celestial body it's named after. Growing up, it felt like a crown of individuality, setting me apart in a sea of conventional names. It wasn't just a collection of letters for me. It was a symbol of my parents' creativity and a testament to my uniqueness. My life, so far, had been a harmonious blend of personal and professional successes, much like the quiet glow of the moon on a clear night. In my early 20s, I found myself deeply in love with Alex, a man whose kindness knew no bounds. We met in college, a pair of dreamers charting our course through life's uncertainties. Our marriage was a natural progression, two souls intertwined by shared dreams and mutual respect. Alex's parents, Richard and Elaine, were the epitome of traditional values. Richard, a self-made businessman, had a demeanor that commanded respect, and Elaine, with her gentle poise, complimented him perfectly. They welcomed me into their family, though I always sensed a flicker of reservation in their eyes each time they said my name. "Ah, Luna," Elaine had said during our first meeting, her voice laced with a polite curiosity. "That's quite a unique name." I smiled, used to the reaction. "Yes, it is. My parents love the night sky," I replied, hoping to convey the love embedded in those 4 letters. Richard had nodded, a hint of something unreadable in his gaze. "Unique indeed," he had echoed, his voice neutral but not unkind. Our relationship, if not warm, was cordial. We navigated through family gatherings, holidays, and the occasional Sunday brunches with a polite understanding. There was always a sense of decorum, a line of respect that wasn't crossed. But beneath this facade of normalcy, a storm was brewing, a test of loyalties and beliefs that would challenge the very core of my identity. It was a storm that began with a seemingly innocuous offer, one that would force me to stand at a crossroads between my sense of self and the allure of familial acceptance. The turning point came unexpectedly on a mild spring evening. Richard had invited Alex and me for dinner at their home, a sprawling estate that spoke volumes of his success. As we dined under the soft glow of the chandelier, conversation flowed from mundane family updates to business affairs. It was then that Richard, his eyes reflecting a shrewd business acumen, turned to me. "Luna, I've been observing your career in digital marketing. You have a remarkable talent, and I believe you could bring a fresh perspective to our company," he said, his voice a mix of admiration and calculated interest. I was taken aback. Joining Richard's company, a pillar of the community known for its conservative approach, had never crossed my mind. "Thank you, Richard. That's quite an offer," I replied, trying to mask my surprise. "Yes, it is," he continued, leaning forward. "I'm serious about this, Luna. Your innovative ideas could be just what we need to modernize our brand. The offer was undeniably appealing. It wasn't just a job opportunity, it was a chance to become part of the family's legacy, to contribute to something that Alex was so proudly a part of. Yet something held me back, a nagging feeling that there was more to this than just business. As if reading my thoughts, Richard added, "There is, however, one small matter. Your name, Luna, it's a bit unconventional for our corporate image. For you to take a prominent role in the company, we'd need to present you in a more professional light." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Are you asking me to change my name?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Richard nodded, his expression unapologetic. "Yes, I believe a more traditional name would be better suited for the business environment. It's a small change, but it's essential for the company's image." The room spun around me as his words sank in. My name, the essence of my identity, reduced to a mere branding obstacle. I looked at Alex, searching for support. He seemed as stunned as I was, his eyes wide with disbelief. I need to think about this," I stammered, excusing myself from the table. The night air felt heavy as I stepped outside, the stars above mocking me with their unchanging brilliance. The days following Richard's proposition felt like walking through a fog of disbelief. How could I, Luna, a name chosen with love and imbued with meaning, consider casting it aside for a corporate image? It was more than just a name. It was a testament to who I was, a symbol of my parents' hopes and my unique path in life. I found myself sitting across from Richard a few days later, in his meticulously organized office, the air heavy with the scent of aged wood and success. Alex was beside me, his presence a silent source of strength. "Richard, I've given your offer a lot of thought," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of the company. However, I cannot and will not change my name. It's an integral part of my identity." Richard's expression hardened, the lines on his face deepening. "Luna, this is a small compromise for a significant opportunity. It's a business decision, nothing personal." "It's deeply personal to me," I countered, feeling a surge of defiance. "My name is not a compromise. It's who I am." Alex interjected, his voice firm. "Dad, you can't ask Luna to change her name. It's an unreasonable condition." Richard sighed, a trace of frustration in his eyes. "I thought you'd be more understanding of the business world's needs. It's not just about you, it's about the company's image." The conversation ended with a tangible tension. As Alex and I left his office, the finality of my decision hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. I had stood up for my identity, but at what cost? That evening, Elaine called, her voice a blend of concern and diplomacy. "Luna, dear, are you sure you won't reconsider? Richard means well, and it's a fantastic opportunity." "Elaine, I respect Richard and what he's built, but I can't lose myself in the process. My name is not up for negotiation," I replied, my resolve unwavering. The call ended with a polite goodbye, but the unspoken disappointment was clear. The decision had been made, lines had been drawn, and the once cordial relationship with my in-laws now stood on a fragile edge. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere at family gatherings changed. What was once a space filled with casual laughter and easy conversations now felt strained, as if each word and gesture were measured and weighed for its impact. Richard and Elaine, while always polite, had a coolness in their demeanor that was hard to ignore. Dinner conversations were now a careful dance around safe topics, avoiding the unspoken tension that lingered like a shadow. Alex tried to bridge the growing divide, his efforts a testament to his love for both his family and me. Yet, the strain was evident in the furrow of his brow, the way his laughter didn't quite reach his eyes. One Sunday afternoon, as we gathered in their lush backyard, Elaine approached me, her voice soft, her words chosen with care. "Luna, I know you feel strongly about your name, but sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the greater good. It's not just about you, it's about what's best for the family." Her words, though spoken with a maternal gentleness, stung. "Elaine, I understand your perspective, but my name is a part of who I am. It's not a whimsical choice, it's my identity," I replied, my voice calm but firm. She sighed, a look of maternal concern in her eyes. "I just hate to see this causing a rift in the family. You're important to us, Luna." The conversation ended with a polite smile, but the divide was palpable. As the evening wore on, the laughter and chatter around me felt distant, a reminder of what was lost in the pursuit of staying true to myself. Alex and I left early that night, the car ride home filled with a heavy silence. He reached over, squeezing my hand, a wordless gesture of solidarity. It was in that quiet moment, under the soft glow of the streetlights, that I realized the true cost of my decision. As the days turned into weeks, the unspoken battles within the family grew more pronounced. Richard and Elaine's demeanor towards me was cordial, yet there was a perceptible distance, a barrier built not of words but of unmet expectations and unspoken disapproval. Family gatherings became a balancing act. Conversations were polite, yet they lacked the warmth and intimacy that once made these occasions special. I could sense the unasked questions and lingering judgments in their cautious smiles and measured greetings. Alex, caught in the middle of this silent storm, was a pillar of support. He understood the unspoken dynamics, the delicate balance between respecting his parents and standing by his wife. His efforts to ease the tension were commendable, but the gap that had formed was not easily bridged. One evening, during a particularly tense dinner, Richard made an offhand remark about the importance of tradition and legacy in business. It wasn't directed at me, but the underlying message was clear. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, a mix of frustration and resolve. Alex, sensing the tension, quickly changed the topic, his voice a little too cheerful. "Dad, how's the new product line coming along?" he asked, steering the conversation to safer waters. The evening ended with polite goodbyes, but the emotional distance was more pronounced than ever. As Alex and I drove home, the silence in the car was a stark contrast to the unspoken words that hung between us. That night, lying in bed, I found myself reflecting on the situation. I had stood my ground, true to my beliefs, but at what cost? The family I had hoped to be a part of now felt like a distant mirage, a connection strained by the weight of unmet expectations and silent judgments. Yet, amidst the turmoil, there was a sense of strength, a deep-seated knowledge that compromising on one's identity was too high a price to pay, even for the sake of familial harmony. As the months passed, the strained relationship with Richard and Elaine remained unchanged, a constant undercurrent in our interactions. However, life has a way of bringing unexpected twists. It was during an unremarkable Tuesday morning when I received a call from Alex. His voice was a mix of surprise and urgency. "Luna, you won't believe this. Dad's company is facing a major PR crisis. Something about their latest advertising campaign being out of touch with today's values." I sat up, alert. Richard's company had always prided itself on its traditional approach, but in a rapidly changing world, what was traditional could quickly become outdated. Alex continued, "They're struggling to connect with the younger audience. It's a mess, and Dad's at his wit's end." A thought began to take shape in my mind, a daring idea that was both a risk and an opportunity. "Alex, I think I can help," I said slowly, the gears in my mind turning. "But it has to be on my terms." That evening, I found myself sitting across from Richard in his office, the tension of past conversations hanging in the air. "Richard, your company needs a new perspective, one that understands the values and voices of today's generation. I can offer that perspective, but I do it as Luna, not as someone else." Richard looked at me, his expression a mixture of desperation and skepticism. "You think you can turn this around?" he asked, his voice tinged with a hint of doubt. "I know I can," I replied confidently, "but I do it my way, with my name, my identity." The decision was made. Over the next few weeks, I worked closely with the company's marketing team, infusing new ideas and strategies that resonated with a broader, more diverse audience. The campaign was a bold departure from their usual approach, but it struck a chord, turning the tide in favor of the company. Richard watched in amazement as the public perception shifted. The company that was once criticized for being out of touch was now praised for its progressive and inclusive approach. In a quiet moment, after the success of the campaign, Richard approached me. "Luna, I was wrong," he admitted, a rare vulnerability in his voice. "Your name, your identity, it's what gave you the insight we needed. I'm sorry for not seeing it earlier." The apology was a balm to the wounds of the past months. It didn't erase the hurt, but it was a start, a step towards mending the frayed threads of our family ties. The success of the new marketing campaign marked a turning point in my relationship with Richard and Elaine. The The rigid boundaries that once defined our interactions began to soften, replaced by a growing sense of mutual respect. One Sunday afternoon, as we gathered for a family lunch, the atmosphere was noticeably lighter. Richard, who had once viewed me through the lens of skepticism, now engaged in conversations with a newfound openness. During a quiet moment, Elaine pulled me aside. Her eyes, usually so composed, held a warmth that had been absent for so long. "Luna, I want to apologize," she began, her voice laced with sincerity. "We were wrong to ask you to change who you are. You've shown us that there's strength in being true to oneself." Her words, simple yet heartfelt, touched a deep chord within me. "Thank you, Elaine," I replied, feeling a sense of closure. It means a lot to hear that. The rest of the day passed with a gentle ease, a harmony that had been missing in our gatherings. Laughter flowed freely, and conversations were imbued with a genuine interest and warmth. As Alex and I drove home that evening, he reached for my hand, a smile playing on his lips. "Looks like you've won them over, Luna," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "I guess I have," I replied, feeling a sense of accomplishment. But more importantly, I stayed true to myself, and that made all the difference. The journey had been challenging, filled with moments of doubt and conflict. Yet it had led to a deeper understanding and acceptance, not just within the family, but within myself. Standing up for my identity had not only brought resolution to the family tensions, but had also reaffirmed my belief in the importance of being true to oneself. The resolution with Richard and Elaine was more than just a reconciliation. It was the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. The experience had not only changed my relationship with my in-laws, but also brought about a profound personal transformation. Emboldened by the success of the campaign and the newfound respect from Richard and Elaine, I began to advocate more openly for diversity and individuality in professional spaces. My experience had taught me the value of authenticity, and I was determined to share this insight with others. I started by conducting workshops and seminars, using my story as a case study to illustrate the importance of embracing uniqueness in the business world. The response was overwhelming. People from various industries reached out, sharing their own stories of struggling to fit into corporate molds that didn't reflect their true selves. Meanwhile, at Richard's company, the changes were palpable. The staff, once hesitant to express their individuality, now felt encouraged to bring their whole selves to work. The office became a vibrant tapestry of diverse personalities and ideas, each contributing to a richer, more inclusive culture. Alex and I, through these changes, grew closer than ever. He was my steadfast partner, always encouraging, always believing in the value of what I stood for. Our love, which had weathered the storm of family tensions, emerged stronger, rooted in mutual respect and understanding. As I sat at my desk one evening, reflecting on the journey, I realized how much I had grown. The challenges had not only strengthened my resolve, but had also opened up new paths, opportunities to make a difference in ways I had never imagined. The phone rang, snapping me out of my reverie. It was Elaine, inviting us over for dinner. Her voice, once a source of polite formality, now carried a genuine warmth. I smiled, accepting the invitation. Hanging up, I looked out the window at the night sky, the stars twinkling like distant beacons of hope. My name, Luna, once a point of contention, was now a symbol of my journey, a journey of standing up for who I am and inspiring others to do the same. In the quiet of the night, I realized that this was just the beginning. There were more stories to tell, more barriers to break, and more paths to forge. And I, Luna, was ready for whatever lay ahead.